Hey guys, this is Urizi. Part 14 of What If Naruto Was the Son of Apollo. The summer after the quest for Artemis, Naruto has his hands full with guilt, concern and frustration. When Bianca's strange illness takes a turn for the worse, a quest is started. A relationship is strained, a hero returns, and the labyrinth is found. Join Naruto as he begins his quest for the cure and the others dive into the labyrinth. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and also check the author in the description if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 21. Looking into the bathroom mirror, Naruto adjusted the horned headband on his head, his mop of messy spikes being pushed back into a short mane of blonde while two shaggy bangs had framed his face like they did his father and godfather. He had, after Talia persuaded him to let Jason borrow some of his slightly larger clothes, changed out of his hospital scrubs, tucking those away to wear on a rainy night, into some khaki cargos and another orange shirt with an arrow on it. He liked the shirt, sue him, wearing his new white flak jacket over it. He looked at his reflection, tilting his head this way and that and comparing himself to the picture of his father that was in the entrance of the Hokage mansion. His face shimmered for a bit before the thinner and whiskerless face of Helios appeared in the reflection with a golden brow arched. Helios' sudden arrival in the mirror got a startled yelp from the reincarnated god. "What the hell are you doing?" Naruto asked the Titan. "Trying something new. This whole apparition thing is nice and all, but it gets annoying," Helios said. He arched a brow again. "Mind telling me why you accepted this deal?" "Because it was a good one." "No really, why did you accept this deal?" Naruto frowned. "Because maybe I don't want to completely isolate myself from my homeland." "Would you leave Greece behind if given the option?" "Okay, you've got me there," Helios said begrudgingly. "But you know this is a way to keep tabs on you, right?" "Oh, totally, I'm not an idiot. But I'm strong and these lands respect strength," said Naruto. "They'd rather fight with me than against me, and to think they haven't seen God mode yet," said Helios with a laugh. "Alright kid, you've made a choice and you're sticking with it. Though I get the feeling you wanted something like this to happen." Naruto just smiled a bit at that. "I did promise Jiraiya to bring peace to these lands. A soldier as strong as you working for all five, they'd have no choice but to cooperate since not one can control you. You're a shrewd one, Naruto Uzumaki." "I try." Naruto chuckled as Helios' appearance vanished back to the depths of his soul, leaving Naruto alone with his own reflection once again. Naruto grinned at himself. "I think it's time to go." The bathroom door opened and the demigods waiting around in the lounge room of the Hokage mansion looked up as Naruto walked in, decked out in his new gear. Talia gave a small frown at it. Sure, he looked good, but it was just another reminder that he decided to tie himself down to these strange lands. The blonde chuckled at the sight of the uncomfortable-looking Jason. He was wearing an orange Camp Half-Blood shirt that Naruto had dug out. It was that or the Game Over shirt with the logo of a bride and a groom with a ball and chain on it, and quite frankly, Naruto wasn't sure how Hera would react to a child of Zeus or Jupiter wearing that particular shirt, and some loose dark cargo shorts. "Miss your Camp Jupiter shirt, Jason?" Naruto asked. "I feel naked," said Jason with a frown as he looked down at the shirt. "Seriously? Camp Half-Blood? Stupid name, right?" Naruto asked. "Talk about making you feel less than human. It's supposed to make you feel more than human," said Talia. "Well, it fails spectacularly," said Naruto dryly. He pointed at himself with his thumb. "I grew up with the stigma of being less than human. Excuse me for not exactly enjoying the camp's name." Talia shook her head while Piper looked at the praetor of Camp Jupiter with a smirk. "You should probably try to call the Olympians by their Greek names. As long as you wear that, it'll probably keep you from getting smote." "Ha, ha, ha," said Jason dryly, making the girl giggle. He snorted and crossed his arms. "You're lucky you're cute. And a girl," said Naruto with a smirk. "Jason doesn't like hitting girls, goes against his moral code." "Unlike someone who doesn't have a moral code," said Jason. "Bah, it's a worthless thing for a ninja," said Naruto, waving the younger blonde's words off. "Warriors are warriors, no matter the sex." "Damn right," said Talia with a smirk. She pushed herself off the wall she was leaning against and crossed her arms over her chest. "Are we ready to go yet?" "Yep," said Naruto. He held his hands up in the seal for the Kage Bunshin technique, making a single clone, who he looked at sternly. "You say goodbye to Reiko-chan, Ayam and Irika. Then Ba-chan and Kakashi-sensei." Hi, said the clone, his eyes rolling. The clone turned and left the room, grumbling under his breath. I heard that. Oh, what are you going to do, dispel me? Piper and Jason laughed at the clone's retort while Talia smirked at her growling boyfriend. Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose and mumbled something about stupid clones and damn inherited annoying qualities. Sighing as he finished his small moment, Naruto let his hand drop and turned to look at his amused companions. Glad you're all enjoying yourselves at my expense, he said. Alright then, I suppose it's time to get moving. Follow me. Naruto turned and left the room, heading for the stairs. Talia, Jason and Piper quickly followed him, going up the spiraling staircase for what felt like forever until Naruto pushed open a door at the end of a short hallway. They filed out onto a large circular roof, giving Piper and Jason a very good view of the massive village they barely got to admire while Talia hung back away from the view, lest she be reminded how high up she was. Naruto paid no mind to this, putting his fingers in his mouth and whistling loudly. He ignored the questioning looks he received, keeping his eyes on the sun in the sky. Then they heard it, a distant whinny of a very familiar horse. Oh, no, said Talia with a groan. We're not taking that thing again, are we? Well, unless you guys would like to drag my sexy ass through the gates of Camp Jupiter, this is our fastest ride, said Naruto, his eyes following the bright form of his steed. He smirked at Jason. You know, your cousin has a Pegasus, Jason. You should probably look into getting a ride of your own. Jason arched a brow. But, I can fly. It's the principle of the thing, said Naruto with a shrug. It's like having a car. Except 10 times as awesome. I mean, Zephyr can fly, is made of fire and talks to me. Blackjack, Percy's steed, has wings and is a direct descendant of the original Pegasus. Really? Remind me to congratulate the seaweed-clotted idiot when we get back to camp, said Talia flatly. She was not looking forward to another ride on that stupid chariot. Another thought came to her and Talia looked at Naruto with a frown. How'd you get Percy's horse to let you push Percy off its? His, not its, whatever. Talia rolled her eyes. How'd you get Percy's horse to agree to you dropping Percy from different heights into the water? Naruto blinked before holding a finger up. 1. I'm pushing him into water. Any injuries he should obtain are healed by the squid god's domain. Naruto held a second finger up. 2. It's a way to calculate heights by instinct, I'm not just being an ass. There's always a method to my madness, right Jay? Jason nodded in agreement to that. Naruto had Jason hogtied several times just to teach Jason how to correctly escape binds by sharpening the wind around him. He rubbed his wrists at the phantom rope burns. There were a lot of times he woke up in different bindings and positions. It begged the question what else Naruto learned. And 3. Naruto held up a third finger with a grin. I figured out through Silena that Blackjack has a soft spot for donuts. So a couple of those and assurances that the training was for Percy's benefit, and I had a co-conspirator. That is the most devious thing I've ever heard, said Piper as she and Jason gaped at the proudly grinning Naruto. I mean, turning his own steed against him. I try. Speaking of steeds, said Jason. He pointed at the descending ball of fire. He's not going to pull another landing, is he? Oh yeah, Zephyr was never the landing horse, said Helios thoughtfully. We might want to move, said Naruto. He wrapped his arm around Talia, diving out of the way as the ball of fire impacted with the roof of the Hokage mansion. The foundation of the building shook from the impact, making Jason and Piper fall to the ground. The sound of it echoed for miles. Zephyr reared back on his hind legs, the chariot already hooked up, and whinnied proudly. Naruto and Talia got back up, both looking at the horse with different reactions. Naruto's was stunned and Talia's was livid. That stupid horse could have killed us, Talia said, getting a mild snort from said stupid horse. Zephyr was rather smart among his kin, thank you. Zephyr's not stupid, said Naruto in defense of his steed. He put a hand on the fiery horse's snout and petted him gently. Right, bud? Zephyr nodded with another soft snort, enjoying the petting he received. Naruto. And that, my friends, is our cue to leave, said Naruto, stopping his petting as the four of them climbed aboard the chariot. Naruto grabbed the reins and cracked them as soon as Piper and Talia's hands gripped the sides of his chariot. He liked the sound of that, his chariot. Less ego, more speedo. Helios snapped Naruto from his daze as they took off. Just like your old man, you know that? If he's old, what does that make you? Naruto returned. I'm ancient, wise, and yet still the stud muffin I was millennia ago. And I have the ego? Naruto asked quietly. What was that? Jason asked. Nothing, just talking to myself, said Naruto. There was another cry of his name and Naruto, through learned instincts, ducked to avoid being hit by the stapler that should have been thrown at his head. Looking back over his shoulder past Talia's face at the Hokage mansion that was rapidly becoming smaller, Naruto grinned. Goodbye, Bachan. On the cracked roof of the Hokage tower, the Godame Hokage scowled and her hands clenched into fists. That little. You'd best lose that mouth while you're gone, brat, or I'll rip it off. Tsunade Dano, I think it would be wise not to antagonize the first Sennin no Rengagun, Sage of the Alliance, said Gaara with a barely noticeable smirk on his face. Antagonize him? Tsunade said, swiveling her gaze around to glare at him. Your mansion wasn't just desecrated by a freaking meteor. It makes me wonder just what else he has learned over in this America, said he, crossing his massive arms over his chest. Bah, from the reports given to us by Konoha, it is nothing to be concerned of, said Inoki. They believe in a higher power and are physically weak. Back in my day, religion brought nothing but grief and sorrow. When the Nidamed Tsuchikage did away with it dash. The history lesson is so very interesting, Inoki Dano, but could you please save it for another time? Said Mei dryly. Her gaze went to retreating ball of fire and a smirk tugged at her lips. I do wonder if he could teach me that. The other four Kage rolled their eyes at the desperate, single woman. They followed her gaze and looked to the disappearing streak of light, each wondering when the new asset/old friend/son would return and what else he would bring with him. Only time would tell. So, we've got about 10 minutes before we get back to the boot camp, said Talia, once more trying to distract herself from the current situation. She kept her eyes on Naruto's back, looking at the clan seal intently. What's with the swirl? The what? Naruto asked, looking at her over his shoulder. The swirl on the back of your jacket. You said it was your clan seal, what's that? It's his clan symbol, said Piper. The Gray siblings looked at her and she shrugged. I like looking up stuff on Wikipedia, Sumi. Little wannabe cabin 6 member, said Talia with a smirk. I don't know what that means, said Piper dryly. Me either, said Jason. You should, said Talia with a frown as she looked at her brother. Jason rolled his eyes. I'm Roman. You're Greek. I'm Cherokee, said Piper with a smile. And I'm some blend of Euro-Asian, said Naruto dryly. What does it matter? In my opinion, the demigods shouldn't have been split in the first place. Roman and Greek aspects aside were not so different after all. $10 says that Ares and Mars kids would get along splendidly. You may be onto something there, said Jason with a chuckle. He leaned back to look at the spiral. What does that mean? You asked Richard to give you another tattoo. Another tattoo? Talia asked, giving the whiskered blonde a glare. Naruto ignored the eyes burning into the back of his head. Like you're one to talk, Mr. 4 years old and tattooed. What? Tradition, Talia, said Jason, waving it off like it's nothing. No wait, you have a tattoo? Since you were a kid? Piper asked. Yeah so, Jason. Talia said. She looked livid. What? What the hell? What's the big deal? Jason asked. He rolled up the sleeve of Naruto's lone shirt to reveal his upper arm, revealing the eagle above the black SPQR and the 10 lines underneath it. This is a symbol of the Legion, and I'm proud to have it. Besides, it didn't hurt that much. And who cried a bit when they got that 5th line? Shut up, Naruto. Wait, you didn't get those all at once? Piper asked, looking at the tattoo in awe. The eagle was simple, and yet elegantly proud all the same. 1 bar for every year of service, said Jason, pointing at each line and ignoring the glare boring into his head. He learned well from Naruto how to brush anger directed at you off. Unfortunately, this meant that he never learned when to practice this, hence why Talia continued to glare at him. He glanced at Naruto. You still got yours? Duh, said the blonde charioteer. He shifted the reins to one arm and rolled up his sleeve, revealing bare skin. Naruto took a deep breath before sighing as chakra was dispersed around his arm, revealing a small tag wrapped over his arm, right underneath a lyre tattooed into his skin above the letters SPQR. There was one lonely bar under his mark. Now I might have my own serial code, but I was deemed expired. Naruto, you stirred up a rally outside of the Senate. Which you were a part of. I was doing crowd control. And you were an adorable little riot shield. I think I hate you. I love you, too Jason. Jason Grace, you were 4 when you got a tattoo? Talia asked, looking at her brother sternly. Yeah, said Jason, looking at his sister with genuine confusion. So what? I think it puts hair on his chest. You, stop talking, said Talia, glaring at her boyfriend while Piper laughed at Naruto's shoulders slumping. She looked back at Jason. You, that thing is coming off. As soon as we get back to the boot camp. Why I'm not getting rid of my tattoo? Not like you could, said Naruto with a snort. Exactly. Jason, you shut up. Whiskers, talk. Jason looked bewildered at Talia's order, making Piper laugh just a bit harder, which got a small frown from the blonde for being her subject of amusement. The tattoos are more or less blessed scars, like from the original Legion, said Naruto. Marks of war, survival of a whole year. An honor. Taking Jason's tattoo away is like taking away Annabeth's beads. They branded my brother. Talia said, enraged. My baby brother got branded by some sick bastards who think that kids getting tattoos is honorable. She spat the last word out, showing her disgust with the whole thing. I'm not a baby, Talia, said Jason, who looked a tad annoyed. He was 14, damn it. She didn't call you a baby, said Piper, a wide smile on her face. She loved this more and more, though there were a few things she was still uncomfortable with, fighting monsters and seeing someone die. Piper felt that this new camp would be more entertaining than anything. Shame that Jason wouldn't be with them, he was kind of fun to talk to. She called you her baby brother. Because that makes it all better, said Jason with a frown. It should help a bit. Hey, no flirting or you'll be flying home on your own power, Jason, said Naruto with a smirk. He was rewarded with one red-faced preteen while the other just rolled his eyes. Ah, the wonders of hormones mixed with stupidity. He missed those days. I don't flirt, Naruto, said Jason flatly. Of course you don't, said Naruto with a chuckle. Doesn't mean that little Miss Aphrodite's daughter wasn't. Even if she didn't mean to, Piper is one heck of a flirt. You can heal it, right Whiskers? Talia asked. His burn. I think I could, said Naruto after a moment of thought. But I won't. And why not? Like I said before, it'd be like taking Annie's beads from her. I'd never do that, said Naruto, rolling his sleeve back down while his eyes met Talia's. Neither would you. Talia frowned at the truth in his words, her jaw clenching. Still, the fact remains. That you're jealous that we got tattoos before you did, said Naruto with a smirk. Her cheeks heated a bit and Naruto chuckled lightly. Oh come on, Talia, don't be jealous. I'll take you to get your own if you want. A cute little butterfly right above that spot on your, ow. Shut up, Naruto, said Talia after she smacked him upside the head, her face red hot in embarrassment. Well, is he right? Jason asked, looking at his red-faced sister with an arched brow. Why would I lie about getting her one of those cute little butterflies above her? Oh, shutting up, said Naruto, rubbing his recently punched arm. I am not jealous of your tattoo. Talia said with a frown directed at her brother. She was a little jealous, but there was no way she was going to tell him that, since she was mad that her brother was forced to get branded at such a young age. You so are, said Piper with a smirk. Do you want your boyfriend to take you to get it done? I mean maybe not a butterfly but, ow. Hey. She rubbed her arm where Talia punched her. I thought you were on my side, said Talia, frowning. All's fair in love and war, said Piper with a shrug. Not entirely sure that applies here, Pipes. Stop calling me that. All's fair in love and war, said Naruto with a smirk. Hypocrite. Sticks and stones, Pipes, sticks and stones. A couple of trees, too apparently, said Jason. Since when did you become such a smartass? Naruto asked his friend. When did you get exiled? 5 years ago. 6 years ago. Well, it seems we need to have some more training sessions, Jason. Naruto said, looking ahead as the broke through the clouds. I'll have to stop by Camp Jupiter sometime soon and up you and the rest of the cohorts, training. Wait, why would we need more training sessions? Someone has been slacking. You totally got slammed into a mountainside. That was your fault. You could have stopped yourself midair, but you didn't. Hence, slacking. I think being a preacher might have gone to your head a bit. You can expect me sometime over the course of the fall. Jason turned a bit pale at that. While he acknowledged that the outcome of Naruto's training was great, he still hated it. It was sadistic, it was insane, and quite frankly, it reminded Jason of some of the things Lupa put him through. Reyna had told him that Naruto and Lupa got along far too well, and that scared Jason a lot. "Master, we've arrived, you should prepare for landing," said Zephyr as they began to climb. "Oh, not again. Can't we get some warning?" Talia asked irritably as her eyes squeezed shut. "I did," said Naruto with a laugh. "Bring us in, Zephyr." The fiery steed whinnied proudly before dropping towards the ground, parting the clouds over Camp Jupiter as he did. The three young demigods screamed in alarm while Naruto laughed. He was a thrill-seeker, and like many Uzumaki before him, not all of his screws were tight. They do say that the line between genius and insanity was thin, after all, and there was no one cleverer than the Uzumaki clan when it came to their trademarked art of sealing. Says a lot about that family line, doesn't it? "Faster, faster," Naruto said, laughing once more. "Whiskers, you're crazy. And proud of it. You should not be proud of it," Jason said. "We've had this talk before, Jason. Lighten up." Whatever Jason was going to say died on his lips as they hit the ground before the bridge to Camp Jupiter. 3 of the 4 demigods were sprawled around the impact zone, Naruto still in his chariot only because of the chakra he was using to stick to it. He dropped to the ground when the chariot burst into flames and vanished, patting Zephyr lightly on the side when he walked around to him. "All right, Zephyr, I think you know what I need you to do next," said Naruto. He got a nod from the horse before he took off in a gallop to the bridge, rising up with another trail of fire following his hooves. Naruto smiled at his loyal steed. "Remind me to get him an extra large bag of popcorn kernels after this," the blonde thought to his past life. "Will do." I can already hear his reaction. Popcorn," said Helios with a laugh. And yes, he was impersonating exactly who you thought he was impersonating. Naruto laughed at Helios' comment, walking over to his grumbling girlfriend to offer her help back to her feet. He loved having voices in his head, made the insanity that comes with being a shinobi a bit easier to deal with. The 4 teens, 3 of them a bit miffed that the 4th hadn't bothered to help them remain standing, entered Camp Jupiter, getting a small welcoming committee from the guards, Terminus, and of course Naruto's favorite Roman god, Phoebus Apollo. "Hey kids! Way to go on a successful quest, Jason. Not like you've never done it before, but hey! How was the Hidden Lands? Just as chaotic as I remember?" Phoebus asked as they walked through the camp. The god led them into the main temple, giving his father's statue a small wave before turning to face the unimpressed kids. "In the midst of the 4th war," said Naruto dryly. Phoebus frowned. "Shame that. Hope no one else I know dies, especially not Hataki. I liked him." "You were not Minato Namikaze," said Naruto with a scowl. "Well, you're half right," said Phoebus with a crooked grin. "Funny thing about my father's powers, very unpredictable, quick to change, even on him. You get that from him, you know. I'm flattered." "Note the flattery on my face," said Naruto, his face blank. "Oh, come on, it's not like you hate all of the king's aspects," said Phoebus, glancing at Talia. "I think you know by now that she and her father are 2 different people." "Oh, I have no doubt about that, but there are similarities, I'm sure," said Phoebus, a snort escaping him. "Back to the point I was making, my father's little lesson changed me more than he anticipated. Apollo of both pantheons, Greek and Roman, merged to become the calm, collected, brilliant, and sexy Minato Namikaze. I honestly don't know where the humility came from." "Minato was raised an orphan," said Naruto, helpfully. "True, the memories are still foggy of Minato's younger years," said Phoebus Apollo, rubbing his temple. "A migraine and a memory every now and then of some days." He made a soft sound and shook his head. "Anyway, congratulations are in order for you, Jason. You've become the first Roman demigod to set foot in the Hidden Lands, another impressive thing to add to your growing repertoire. You've earned your rest and my gratitude, something not many can claim." "Thank you, Lord Apollo," said Jason, nodding in gratitude. "Phoebus," said Naruto, giving a light smirk at the scowl he got from his father's Roman aspect. "Fish cake," Phoebus said, enjoying the sight of his son's smirk falling into a frown. "Asshole, brat, self-absorbed idiot, ungracious punk, man-whore, man-child." The 2 blondes looked quite comical, inches away from each other's faces, both scowling at the other. Their argument was cut off by a loud thunderous boom, both of them turning in sync to glare at the stern statue of Jupiter before glaring at each other and then turning away childishly. Piper couldn't take it and broke down into laughter, trying so hard to regain her composure while all eyes went to her. Sorry, but they, too alike, hilarious," she said in between her snorts and snickers. Talia smirked in agreement while Jason nervously watched Apollo's face. The Romans were not a group of jokers, hence why he let Naruto get away with the comment to the large massive rakage. With the gods, it's different. They could either roll with the joke, or they could smite you and your family for it. It was usually the latter. "I blame his mother," said Phoebus with a smirk. "Why the hell did she marry you anyway?" Naruto asked with a frown. "Let's stop before someone's feelings, or body, gets hurt," said Phoebus with his smirk still in place. "If I wasn't sure that you'd retaliate fully, I'd punch you in the gut for that sentence. I'm not my stupid self, Naruto. I think you know that by now. He may play along with your anger, but I will not," said Phoebus sternly to his son. Naruto muttered something unpleasant, causing him to get cuffed upside the head. "Don't think I didn't hear that, Naruto. That's no way to talk about your father. Ow! You used more than average strength. I'm recovering from a concussion, jackass. Your head is too hard for me to give you love taps. Where do you think I got that from? Humph, brat." Apollo snorted and crossed his arms. "Don't you think you should be heading back to the degrading camp? How did you?" "I don't think I want to know," said Naruto. He turned to leave the temple, only stopped when coming up the steps was the other praetor. Reyna was dressed in her usual attire, a purple toga hung over her frame. She smiled at him. "I'm glad to see your safe return, Naruto," said Reyna. Naruto smiled back, an arm crossing over his chest. She smiled slightly wider, turning to Jason. "Welcome back, Jason." "Good to be back, Reyna," said Jason with a nod. "Shame you couldn't have come. It was eye-opening. Hopefully you'll have an interesting story to tell me about," said the daughter of Bologna. Reyna's gaze went over the two Greek girls for a moment before she returned her eyes to Naruto. Talia's eye twitched at both being ignored and for the younger girl giving her boyfriend more attention than she needed to. Piper rolled her eyes, recognizing the girl's crush with ease. She had always wondered how she could notice these things, even when she thought boys were icky, and it all made sense now with her mother's true identity. "You're leaving so soon?" Reyna asked the older boy. "I've taken too long as it is," said Naruto, smiling apologetically. "Believe me, Rei-chan, I would have liked to stay here longer, but I have other duties to attend to." "A shame," said Reyna with a frown on her pretty face. She saluted back to him. "I wish you good and safe travel. May Mercury watch over you. And may Terminus continue to protect you, Praetor," said Naruto with a smile as they dropped their arms. Reyna shifted her gaze to the smirking Phoebus for a brief second and then returned her attention to the god's son. To the surprise of the others, she moved forward and wrapped her arms around him. Naruto looked baffled at the hug, Jason bewildered, and Phoebus' smirk was face-splitting. Piper blinked in surprise. She had thought Reyna was way too stiff to act like this. And by the looks of the others in the room, she wasn't the only one. Heck, even the two guards posted outside had their jaws popped open. Of course, it was Talia's reaction that really stole the show for Piper. She knew that Talia was still mad at Naruto, given the distance the daughter of Zeus had been keeping between them, but apparently Talia was none too happy about the praetor putting her hands on Talia's man. Talia's eyes were sparking in anger and the clouds over Camp Jupiter were darkening. Her stance shifted from bored to angry and her fists were clenching as her arms crossed over her chest. The punk-like daughter of Zeus was definitely not happy with what she was seeing, and quite frankly that was really entertaining Piper for some reason. Talia ground her teeth when she caught the small quick smirk Reyna sent her way. Talia's nostrils flared. That bitch was dead. Meanwhile, Phoebus Apollo was extremely proud of the daughter of Bologna. He was a bit afraid that she'd be too stuck in Lupa's teachings, but apparently her feelings for his son outweighed that. Now all he had to do was let Naruto see that he'd be better off with Reyna instead of his half-Greek sister. There would be no way that Mars could boast his children's superiority after this. Thanks, Rei-chan," said Naruto once he got over his surprise, hugging the girl back lightly. I'll try to stop by and visit." Hearing Naruto talk broke Reyna out of her little trance, causing her to quickly release him and take a step back. Her cheeks lightly flushed, She met his eyes and with as much composure she could manage, looked at him with a small smile that made Helios make a sound of surprise. I hope you do. Goodbye, Naruto. Yeah, bye, let's go, said Talia, sick of seeing this play out and storming out, grabbing Naruto by the front of his flak jacket as she did, nearly dragging him down the stairs. As she passed the girl, she gave Reyna a glare that was readily returned. This was far from over, and both girls knew it. Piper turned and smiled at Jason. Guess this is goodbye for now. Nice to meet you, Jason, thanks for Don't mention it, said Jason, a small smile of his own on his face. Maybe we could do it again sometime, I mean, without all the crazy freaks. Yeah, let's give that a try, said Piper with a laugh, quickly running after the confused whiskered blonde and his irate girlfriend. Wow, I wonder why Talia's so mad, said Jason as he walked over to Reyna's side, his fellow praetor watching the three Greek demigods as they ran for the gates. Reyna said nothing, keeping her gaze on the daughter of Zeus. Next time she'd have to do just a bit more, and that was going to be harder than whatever fight Talia put up. Hey, in case you haven't forgotten, I can teleport to the car, said Naruto as soon as they made it to the tunnel that was outside of Camp Jupiter. Talia turned and gave him another glare. Make one of those clones, said Talia. Now, well, while I'm not opposed to this sort of thing, Talia now isn't exactly the TIWO. Okay. Naruto said, placating his girlfriend when her eyes turned into balls of lightning and a sparking fist was held up threateningly. Holding his hands up, Naruto made his favorite hand seal and a duplicate popped into existence. You, she said, addressing the clone. Take Piper to the car. Why? Piper asked, making Talia turn to her. Trust me. You're going to want to be at the car, said Talia. Taking her word for it, Piper took the clone's offered hand and they vanished in a flash of light. No sooner did they do that did Talia smack Naruto across the face. Ow! Talia-chan, what was that dash? You do not get to talk right now. Talia said, her anger at its limit. I'm sick of your lying to me, Whiskers. Why can't you trust me? Wait, we're doing this now. Naruto asked, not his girlfriend specifically. He looked at the dark overhead and the dim, torch-like lighting. Oh, guess that makes a bit more sense. Stop ignoring me. I'm not ignoring you, Talia-chan, said Naruto, looking back at his livid girlfriend. And I do trust you. I trust you with my life, just not with Jason's. She asked scathingly. That's not fair. Naruto said, looking hurt. I couldn't tell you about him because it wasn't safe to. We were on a quest to save Aunt Artemis, Talia-chan. And after the quest? What was stopping you from telling me then, HM? You think Raijiji would have let you go rushing off to find the Romans? Naruto asked. The two camps were separated for a reason, a stupid reason, but... Here we go again with you and your Olympian damned reasons. Talia said, cutting him off with her arms in the air. Dropping them to her sides, she glared at him. When are you going to give me a straight answer, Naruto? Talia, Bianca is dying. Do we really have to do this right now? Yes. If I let you put it off, you'll never answer me and damn it I am not going to let this go. Talia said, listen to yourself. This is Bianca. Your cousin. Nico's sister. He's lucky to have a sister to worry about. Jason is my brother who I thought was dead for years. I had a right to know where he was. Her eyes were filling with tears. Do you know how long I've thought he was dead? How long I thought it was my fault he died. That my mother was punishing me? You had every right to know, Talia, but I couldn't tell you. Do you know what Raijiji would have done to me if I tried? Naruto said. He gestured behind him. I was exiled and sworn into secrecy unless absolutely necessary. You're damn lucky that quests are part of that clause, otherwise you never would have reunited unless you ran into each other. When would that have been? Talia said, shouting at him as tears pooled up in her eyes. He could hear the storm brewing from within the tunnel. Naruto didn't know what brought this on, but he guessed now he had to deal with it. I don't know. Naruto said, admitting that with a scowl. What, the prophetic son not able to see clearly now? Talia asked. I'm starting to get the feeling you're more loyal to the gods than to your friends. Naruto felt as though he was struck and he knew his face showed it. Frowning at his girlfriend, Naruto clenched his jaw and spoke stiffly. I'm going to let that one go because you're upset. You're damn right I'm upset. Talia said with a scowl. You should have told me, Naruto. He's my brother. You don't think I knew that? Naruto said, his own voice rising to match hers. Don't you think I wanted to tell you? That I wanted to show you he was alive? I wanted nothing more than to tell you that your brother was alive, grown up and kicking ass just like his sister. I couldn't, Talia, and it tore me apart inside. Oh, I sincerely doubt dash. Don't you dare finish that sentence. Naruto said, his eyes glowing in anger as he cut her off. Don't you dare. Naruto took a shuddering breath in order to calm down a bit. You were in limbo, Talia, so you didn't meet them. The fates. He spat their name in anger and disgust. If I were on the crooked asshole's side, they would be my first target. Primordial or not, they control free will, something I had a strong belief in until I died. When I found out that my life was predetermined, predestined, he looked livid. Even thinking of it I was horrified. Everything I knew was a lie. Talia watched as Naruto seemed to crumble before her. It was strange, seeing one who stood so strong and proud look so defeated. It shook her enough to forget her anger for the moment. People that could have died for no reason, it would have been my fault, said Naruto. I lucked out against my cousin Nagato, the self-proclaimed god of rain. He obliterated my village looking for me. Over 18,000 civilians, half of those were children in the center of the village when he obliterated it. If I couldn't convince him. Naruto closed his eyes, recalling the horrible sight he returned to after mastering his sage training. He looked at Talia, his eyes brimming with tears. I was told that despite the choice he made, I would have still ended up here. Meeting Annie. Meeting Luke, meeting you. Talia, I gave my life for you and you still almost died. Imagine how I felt when I learned that would have happened regardless of what I did. Talia flinched. She couldn't imagine that, learning that whatever choice you made would be irrelevant to what happened to others since it was already decided what would happen to them. I told a guy back at the village when I was younger that there was no such thing as fate, said Naruto, a bitter laugh escaping him as he and Talia, who had been told the story, recalled the Chunin exam fight against Niji. Niji was so right about its existence, but he was fated to lose, ironically. I based my life on that I would make my own path, but when my world crashed down around me. Naruto struggled to continue. After a moment of silence, his eyes, large and a bit red from fighting back the tears, met hers. The thing is, Talia, sometimes the truth is far too hard to believe. I still had a right to know, said Talia stubbornly, albeit quieter than before. Talia, if I had told you Jason was alive, would you have believed me? Naruto asked her. With no concrete proof other than, oh yeah, he's just in California with the Roman demigods that live in their own camp, could you honestly say that you believed me? Talia clenched her fists. She desperately wanted to say yes, but knew she couldn't. The raven-haired girl bit on her lip as she refused to accept that she wouldn't have believed him. The thing was, her hope for finding Jason had been squashed when she was a little girl. She had missed Jason for far too long to just jump at the possibility of him being alive. Her silence made Naruto smile bitterly and she fought down the tears as the horrible truth washed over her. She wouldn't have believed Naruto. She would have wanted to, desperately wanted to, but if Naruto couldn't take her to him or tell her where Jason was, Talia would never completely believed him. And that doubt would have been worse than having no hope at all. She felt herself walk into his embrace absent-mindedly, hugging him just as tightly as he did her. Her face was burrowed in his chest as the emotions overcame her, tears rolling down her cheeks. It's not fair, she said softly, fighting the tears back as they flowed. Depressed she may be, but that didn't mean she was just going to bawl, damn it. I know, he said in the same tone. His hand lightly brushed through her hair and he hummed softly to her while she struggled with her reaction. In the back of his mind, he knew logically they should be rushing back to Bianca, but that was his subconscious. Naruto knew that he had to be right here, right now. His lips pressed against the top of her head for a second, pulling away and resuming his comforting humming. Why does all this shit happen to us? Talia asked quietly. Because the fates love us, said Naruto bitterly. Fuck them. Amen to that. What do you think is taking them so long? Piper asked as she sat in the passenger's seat. Well, considering the storm overhead, I'm guessing Talia-chan is still chewing Oyabun out. The clone of Naruto said, fiddling with the radio. Man, what's with the sudden rise in pop? I mean, it's not bad, but, come on, where's the good stuff? What's good stuff? Piper asked in amusement. You know, stuff like Limp Bizkit, nu metal I think it's called, said the clone. Granted it's not as popular as it once was, I still think it's a pretty cool blend of everything. What's the difference between nu metal and metal? Piper asked, confused. That is a long and tedious conversation, said the Naruto clone with a sigh. Music is music and genres only further separate people when it was made to bring people together. Sure, Dad's domain has widened because of the different genres, but look at how it's managed to separate people. We've got cliques, posses, gangs and groups who are separated by their differences, a taste of music being part of it. People should be celebrating all music, not just genres. Whatever you say, said Piper, her eyes rolling in amusement. She jumped when there was a sudden flash next to her. Looking out the window she found Talia and Naruto standing close together, their hands intertwined. Talia seemed to reluctantly pull hers away before knocking on the window. Piper rolled the window down and grinned at the older girl. So, anything interesting happen? Get in the back seat, Piper, said Talia, a small amused smile on her face. Piper gave a whine and Talia shook her head. Not gonna work, now get in the back or I'll shock you. She's not kidding, said the clone before it dispelled itself. Piper sighed sadly before clambering into the back, the car doors opening as the two older teens got in the car. They buckled up and quickly got back on the road, Piper and Talia talking about the camp while Naruto once more thanked Hecate for the cover. Well, that was an adventure and a half, said Helios, chiming in nearly 45 minutes on the road. They were already passing through Nevada. You're telling me? Naruto thought to his past life. So, care to explain why the vision I got that was so repetitive was so different than what actually happened? That was your mind interpreting the scenario. You didn't see the gifts from the hidden lands because of your mindset on not going back. However, granted that promise, I'll bet that opinions changed a bit, hasn't it? Helios asked with what Naruto knew to be a smirk on his face. Maybe, Naruto thought. I don't mean to bring this up, but that Bologna girl, what about her? She reminded me a lot of Road. Naruto blinked in surprise. Excuse me, I think she might be Road incarnated. Helios said, shocking Naruto to the point he nearly forgot about traffic in front of him. Whoa, watch it kid, the Road, whiskers. Talia said, bracing herself against the dash. Shit. Naruto swerved on the highway, trying to narrowly avoid hitting of the slower cars. He went to grab the emergency brake, but his hand brushed over something that gave off an audible click. Oh, crap, said Naruto, looking at what his hand grabbed onto. The visor dropped down and the mirror in it slid away to reveal a heads-up display that said one thing to him. SOL engine activated. Fu dash. Naruto couldn't finish his word as the car suddenly streamlined, shooting forward and making the group feel the G-forces push them into their seats. Several poor cars were in Naruto's path, getting plowed out of the way. Naruto had enough sense to make a sharp turn to the right, busting through the guardrail and flying through the desert of Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico and finally Texas. To any witnesses, they saw what was known as the Marfa lights, or rather, one large golden Marfa light. They came to a stop on a long suburban road, trails of fire burning behind the wheels and the check engine light flashing on the HUD and Naruto was so grateful that the seatbelts were reinforced as they slammed forward, their voices catching up with them. The three demigods groaned, Talia unbuckling her seatbelt and throwing her door open, tumbling out of the car. Naruto did the same, groaning as he hit the asphalt. Remind me to kick Beckendorf's ass for not putting a cover on that thing, said Naruto. Remind me to, help you, said Piper, covering her mouth and looking a little green. Never again. Seconded, said Talia, groaning as she got to her feet. She winced and rubbed her sore stomach where the seatbelt nearly bisected her on the stop. She looked over the hood of the car at her boyfriend. So, think it'll start? Naruto shrugged and got back in, grabbing the keys and trying to turn it over. No such luck. Groaning and rolling his head back to smack against the seat, Naruto's eyes closed. God damn it, said Naruto with a groan. Isn't that sacrilegious? Piper asked. Only for people 17 and up, said Talia with a smirk to the younger girl. Damn. We'll allow that, said Naruto, chuckling at the daughter of Aphrodite's swear. With a sigh, Naruto made sure the emergency brake was off and then got out of the car. Gripping the frame and his seat, He began to push, struggling slightly since he was pushing Stygian iron and who knows what else. Talia decided to help him, and though the thought was generous and welcomed, Naruto was well aware he was doing just a bit more to move the car. It was about 10 minutes in that some kid sitting on a stoop called them out. "Hey Yankees! Got car trouble?" Naruto looked over his challenger's roof for the kid and found him. Another unfortunate sufferer of lack of height that looked a bit like his mischievous uncle. With his keen eyes, Naruto could see the boy's tan skin and elfish features with ease, the dark messy hair and some smudges on his face showing him that this kid was no stranger to getting dirty. His ingrained and trained senses at finding demigods were going off and Naruto narrowed his eyes just slightly before beaming. "Yeah, wanna give us a hand, Squirt? Who the hell are you calling Squirt, gringo?" Naruto laughed at the rise he got out of the kid. "Didn't mean any harm by it. What's your name?" "Name's Leo Valdez," said the kid, who stood from his perch, a puckish grin on his face. "You've got a nice challenger, Blondie." Chapter 22. Okay, taking back what I said about Beckendorf. Naruto scratched his head as he looked at the golden orb trapped in a spherical cage, lined with wires and all sorts of nonsensical machinery. The blonde's eyes saw tubes, shiny and not so shiny parts, but his new acquaintance, soon-to-be companion if what Naruto's senses were telling him were right, and they usually are, saw a masterpiece. Leo Valdez, the young runaway Latino, soaked up all he could, a look of disbelief on his face as he took in the sight. This should be impossible," said Leo. "I mean, theoretically it's possible, but practically, I've drawn sketches of this. I've seen this on paper. But in reality, it's impossible. There's no power source that could fuel it, you'd have to have like an H-bomb or something in here. I take it you know what it is, then?" Naruto asked with an amused smirk. He looked over at Talia and Piper, both of them still sitting on the curb and waiting patiently for them to finish what they're doing. Talia gave a small nod of acknowledgement while she and Piper talked more about Camp Half-Blood. The blonde looked back at the younger teen, his brow arched as he crossed his arms over his chest. "So, what do you think?" "I still think that you're lying about your name," said Leo, making Naruto laugh. "And I also think that this beautiful engine, while impossibly amazing, is flawed." "Flawed?" Naruto asked. "Yes, gringo, flawed. You know what flawed means, right?" "Oh, moving into blonde jokes, huh? Tread carefully, shrimp. Touché, asshole. I get it from my dad." "Lucky that you know him," said Leo, distracted as he's starting to poke and prod at the engine. "You're sure I can mess around with this? It's not stolen or anything, is it?" Naruto smirked at the preteen's forced caution. "It's top secret military tech, me and my girlfriend work for the NSA. Keep it on the down low." "Yeah, sure," said Leo, his eyes rolling. He leaned into the engine and began pulling parts out, avoiding the glowing orb acting as the fuel. "Don't need this, the hell is this doing in here?" Naruto shook his head in amusement, ducking under a random tube that was thrown out after Leo laughed at it for a second. Apparently Beckendorf and co either added a bit too much, or this kid was just messing around in his car. He highly doubted that it was the latter. He always had a good feeling about most of these things. "You said it was flawed?" Naruto said, curious about what the younger kid meant. "Yeah, it's flawed," said Leo, grunting as he pulled out another shiny object that Naruto could not name. "See this?" He held the object up. "This and all that crap I just pulled out linked the H-bomb up to the accelerator. That's good, right?" Naruto asked. "If you want a short burst," said Leo with his eyes rolling. "No, you want maintained speed with this bad boy. I'm going to need a few more pieces though. What's the frame made of?" "Why?" Naruto asked. "Because, gringo, I have to take into account the weight of the damn car before I hook the engine up," said Leo as though he were the older one. Naruto scowled at the younger boy for the condescending tone, getting the boy to raise his hands in defense. "What? You're the one asking stupid questions. I may have a nice car, but that doesn't mean I know how it works," Naruto said, his scowl lightening. "Look, shrimp, and don't give me that look, I know what gringo means and that you're using it wrong since we're both American. The frame and most of the metal are made from a rare iron found only in one place that not many dare to go to. And, quite frankly, I can't tell you exactly where that is," said Naruto with a scowl. "Against the rules, and all that other lovely BS. Rules? Look, can you fix my car or not?" Naruto asked, impatiently. He hated when it came around to this part of the conversation with new demigods. The D'Angelos were a special case, but most of the time, when he met other demigods, especially during those stints as a vigilante in California, he would just suggest they look into finding buses to the camp. I can, said Leo. He grinned at the older teen impishly. But I won't. Naruto groaned as he rubbed his head. Joy, the kid was a chip off of his own shoulder. Dropping his hand to the side, Naruto opened his mouth to speak when he heard another engine rev down the street. Looking in the direction the sound came from, Naruto's eyes adjusted to the light for a second before they locked on the source. A familiar Audi A8 glared at him from the end of the street, making Naruto scowl. You have got to be fucking kidding me. Naruto said. What are they, sharks? Friends of yours? Leo asked. Something like that. Work on the car, said Naruto as he moved to Talia and Piper. Wa gringo. Dude. Come on man, I'm not working a charity here. Work on the damn car, Leo. Naruto said, grabbing Talia and Piper's shoulders and pulling them up. Piper, get in the car. Talia, you're on me. We've got company. Naruto was cut off as he felt a sudden jolt of pain tear through his left shoulder, causing him to spin around and eat the dirt. Whiskers. Talia's voice was concerned, but collected. Piper, get to the car. Go. Naruto blinked to clear his bleary vision. So that's what being shot felt like. Ow. At least it was clean and the bullet went through. The blonde let out a grunt as it was his turn to be helped up. Thank the gods Talia didn't grab the red shoulder torn through. Naruto grunted and reached into his pocket to pull out Eclipse in its flashlight form. Talia helped him over to some cover in front of the car. Was that a gunshot? Leo asked, only for his question to be answered by the sounds of an automatic rifle being unloaded in the area. Holy shit, who did you guys piss off so badly? Welcome to our life, said Talia, setting her boyfriend down on the ground. You okay, Whiskers? I'm fine. Wish I still had my shield though, said Naruto, pulling the nicked edge of his white flak jacket in so he could get a better look at the wound. Check on Pipes, Talia-chan, I'm good. Get her in the back seat on the floor. Leo, join her. No way. Leo said with a scowl, his fists clenched tightly. No one starts a shootout in my neighborhood. Trust me kid, without a gun of your own, there's not much you can do, said Talia. She peeked around the edge of the car, groaning as she spotted the familiar grays of the skeletons that hunted her boyfriend. Great. The Bone Brigade is back. Yeah, I know, said Naruto with a growl. I hate these guys. Why are we being shot at? Piper asked from where she was on the floor of the car. The Stygian iron made the car bulletproof, well in a sense. From the distance the skeletons were shooting, the car was safe, but if they started to move closer, well, it wouldn't be as effective. Because skeletons are cheap. Naruto said, pressing his hand against the wound and heating it. His vitakinesis was kicked into the max with the added pressure and heat. In a minute, he'd be good as new, with a small scar, probably. Skeletons? Gringo, what are you smoking and where can I get some? Leo asked. He peered around the car on the other side, his eyes going wide at the sight of a skeleton dressed like a generic mercenary, camouflage pants, boots and all. The skeleton raised its AK-47 and fired a burst at him, making him duck back behind the car. Sitting next to Naruto, he looked at the blonde with wide eyes. I thought you were going to a con or something, dressed like that. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Naruto asked. Thinking about his appearance, Naruto hummed and undid his headband and put it in his back pouch. Point taken. Flak still okay to wear? Considering they've got guns, yeah, I'd say it's safe to wear, said Leo. He looked at the blonde. Gringo, what the hell is going on? The beginnings of war, said Naruto, looking at the flashlight in his hand. Really wish I had a shield right now. Hey, Talia-chan. I sort of need mine, Whiskers, said Talia flatly. She pulled her bracelet up and revealed it around the side of the car. Aegis. Leo's jaw dropped as a light emitted from her wrist before the massive Medusa-stamped shield folded out. Subspace tech, said Leo, his eyes wide and his mouth salivating just a bit. He looked at Naruto's flashlight. What's that turn into? Pure, unadulterated badassness, said Naruto with a smirk as he flipped the switch. The light turned on briefly before the blade extended out, sounding rather metallic as it did. The handle extended over Naruto's knuckles as the evil sword gleamed brightly in the setting sun. Leo Valdez, this is Eclipse. Eclipse, Leo. Awesome, said Leo, his breath taken away at seeing such a masterpiece of creation unfold from a smaller form. His little engineer-loving head looked like it was about to explode in awe. I know, said Naruto smugly. He looked over at Talia. Talia-chan, take the right, hit M with a few bolts with a slow advance. I'll swing left, rush M and light M up. Right, said Talia. The two ran out from the front of the car, Naruto ducking, running and rolling out of the way of bursts of bullets. Talia, who gained some attention after sending a large stream of lightning at a skeleton, simply used her shield to protect her as she slowly advanced. Leo peered out from his cover and watched as the couple worked. Naruto got pinned behind a small stone hedging and Talia was forced to retreat. Hating the feeling of being useless, the tinkerer turned back and looked at the scrap he discarded upon his first evaluation of the challenger. He grabbed every piece he could find and started to get to work, his hands moving just a tad faster than his mind as he finished his creation. It was an oil bomb. Looking up at the sky, Leo took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Mom, his eyes snapped open at the thought and he rushed out from behind his cover. Wait! Piper called out as she looked out the window from where she was crouched. Naruto and Talia were way more prepared for this and Piper was just coming to terms with swordplay and hand-to-hand combat. There was nothing about guns in the brochure. That idiot, said Talia, watching from where she was pinned on the other side of the street. What is he doing? That little. Naruto said, his eyebrows furrowed together as he worked on a way to get the four of them out of this mess. Eat this, boneheads. Leo said, throwing the bomb at the Audi, causing it to explode on impact with the hood and cake the group of skeletal mercenaries in oil. The skeletons hissed and shrieked at him, struggling to move and shoot him. Before Talia or Naruto could even think of capitalizing on Leo's surprising maneuver, Leo's hand ignited in fire. He chucked the small ball of fire at the oil and as the conductor, the liquid burst into flames, caking both the car and the skeletons in it. Whoa, said Piper, her eyes wide. A pyrokinetic, said Talia, trying to think of whose son he was. Engineering skill, fire throwing. She couldn't think of anyone that fit that except. Talia's eyes widened as she looked at the smirking elf-like boy. A son of Hephaestus. He's my cousin. Naruto thought as he came to the same conclusion Talia did. Naruto got out of his cover, walking over to Leo along with Talia as the skeletons continued to be cremated in the middle of the street. So, was that hot or what? Leo asked, making Talia groan and Naruto laugh. You're on fire, Squirt, said Naruto, amused at Talia's disapproval of his lame joke. Stop calling me that, gringo. Leo said with a scowl. So am I worthy of getting some backstory now? Almost, said Naruto, glancing back at the skeletons. He let his own hand get engulfed in fire, making Leo gape, before it started to rotate in his hand. Holding his open palm out towards the skeletons, Naruto grinned. Katon, Rasendangan, fire release, spiral bullet. The spiraling ball of fire shot from Naruto's palm at one of the skeletons, forcing it to turn to ash. He repeated the action 3 more times, clearing out the skeletons before nodding at Talia while he lowered his arm. Talia nodded back and roughly waved her hand across the area, summoning notice winds and scattering the ashes of the skeletal foes. Couple of freaks, aren't we? Leo asked in awe and amusement. Normal is overrated, said Naruto, making Talia smirk in agreement. So, you want backstory? Leo looked at the burning Audi and then back at the older teens. Hang on, I've got an idea. He rushed over to the car, ignoring the dwindling flames on it as they tickled his skin and with a rough elbow to the edge of the hood, popped it open. Leo grabbed the engine. Sucks that I'm dismantling this, but it's for a good cause. An hour passed and Leo was back next to Naruto's challenger, tinkering and fixing the engine with the spare parts he made from the Audi A8. Naruto was leaning against the headlight and telling Leo all about the way things were, having previously explained that Leo was a demigod and yes, the Greek gods exist and no, he was not allowed to tell mortals to pick up chicks. What's the point of being a hero if you can't brag about it? Leo asked with a frown as he put in a new tube leading from the engine to some other thing. Naruto wasn't sure what it was. It's really fun for one thing, said Naruto with a grin on his face. Those skeletons aside, usually it's monsters that are easier to kill. We turned those things to ashes, ow, damn it stupid sparks, and you're telling me they aren't dead? Leo asked, sticking his thumb in his mouth to cool the small burn he got from the spark. Fire is one thing but electricity, that's a whole different hurt. Here, give me that, said Naruto, grabbing Leo's smudge-covered hand and yanking it from his mouth. Give yourself an infection, sucking on this oil. What are you, some kind of Wonder Man? Leo asked in annoyance. He yelped when Naruto pinched the thumb at the burn. Ow, what the hell? Had to find the afflicted area before it blistered, said Naruto, wrapping his hand around the thumb. And for your information, I prefer Marvel to Simon. His hand shone briefly before he released the wound. Good as new. Maybe we should just call you Medic, said Leo with a snort as he looked at his thumb. Anything you can't do? Fly, said Naruto with a smirk. Talia-chan's little brother can, though, so we've got ourselves a blonde Superman. Acts like the man in blue, too. Noble and a bit of a smartass, thanks to yours truly. Really? Sounds like an okay guy, said Leo with a chuckle as he got back to work. Rather be a smartass than a dumbass. Just wait till you meet Jackson, said Naruto with a chuckle. The worst kind of mix of both. He's not dumb, but very ignorant and stubborn. A bad combination. So he's an idiot, without being an idiot, said Leo with a laugh. He sounds okay to me. You only say that because he doesn't have the hots for your sister, said Naruto with a frown. Protective, much? Leo asked with a sly grin. Shut it, squirt. Naruto growled, making the mechanic laugh and waved the insult off. Naruto looked down at the engine, watching the mostly hydrogen orb hover in its casing while Leo fastened another tube in place. What are you doing? Making it so that once you reach light speed you stay at light speed. Give me a few minutes on the interior and you won't have any G-forces affecting you anymore, said Leo. Just do it as fast as possible, I'm on a deadline, said Naruto, giving a small pat to the back of Leo's head. Gonna go check on my girlfriend, you good? I've got an H-bomb in my face and a couple of delicate wires to connect to it, said Leo. He looked up at his new friend with an excited grin on his face. I'm better than good, I'm in the zone. Naruto laughed and walked back to the stripped-out EA8, where Talia and Piper were flipping through some papers they found in the back seat. All written in ancient Greek. So what are we looking at? Naruto asked, leaning into the car window and looking at the papers in his raven-haired girlfriend's hands. His eyes narrowed. Is that what I think it is? Talia angrily handed him the paper. If you think it's a call to arms, then you're right. How many of these letters do you think were sent to campers' homes? Considering this was written in March, I'd say too many, said Naruto with a scowl as he read through the lines. Better rulers than the Olympians. Obvious favoritism to heroes of higher standing, claimed at birth. Hell, I'm almost tempted to turn at that last one. It explains why there were 10 missing campers at the start of the summer from cabin 11, said Talia. She held up another piece of paper, which Naruto took. Piper found this. What is it? Naruto asked, though he was already reading it. Commissions for Cyclopes arming. Telekines? Yeah, invitation to one of the best forges on the planet too, said Piper from the back seat. I've got lists of meat portions back here and several poorly drawn maps of, well, I think it's the labyrinth. Hand it up here, said Naruto, taking the paper from Talia after she got it from Piper. Cripes. Naruto's eyes widened. I knew there was an entrance at camp, but they're planning an assault, Clarice. Whatever, said Naruto, his eyes rolling. Mark's sister couldn't get through that thing, and if a daughter of Ares couldn't get through, why the heck would Luke think he can? She's a daughter of Ares, said Talia. Ares is not an imbecile, said Naruto pointedly. Especially to warfare. Athena is the goddess of honorable warfare, but Ares is the god of war, period. He knows insertion techniques just as well as Athena does. Mark may get bloodthirsty, but he's smart. I'm guessing Clarice is the same way. From what I've heard from Annie about the Sea of Monsters quest, you wouldn't be wrong, said Talia with a frown. But they've got their own rivalry. Must be their parents' beefs coming to light every now and then. Seems that way, said Naruto, who looked back down at the information he was given. Grab all of it, we're taking it back to camp. Mr. D is going to want to see this, even if he says otherwise. You just won't be the one to give it to him, right? I seriously have no idea what his issue is, said Naruto with a groan. He handed the paper back to Talia. Keep searching through this and find out a potential list of monsters we're going to deal with. Taking that flak jacket seriously, aren't you? Talia asked in amusement at his order, knowing that obtaining the flak jacket was a huge deal for Naruto's village. Especially in their culture, since her boyfriend was considered a rookie or weakling without it, while in his 20s. Boy, was he given the short end of the stick on that part, considering what he could do now. You know you love it, said Naruto coyly, brushing a thumb on her nose before leaving the two to their leafing through the potential information. She stuck her tongue out at him as he left, settling back into the driver's seat and looking down at the papers in her lap. What's the situation? Naruto asked Leo upon his return to the Challenger. Leo finished tightening a socket into place with a wrench, pulled the tool out and shut the hood. Engine's done. Give me a few minutes with the seats and those will be just as good, said Leo with a smirk, looking up at the older teen. Taking note of the grim look on his face, Leo asked. What's up? We need to leave, said Naruto, looking back at the Audi and whistling loudly to get Talia's attention. He waved at her to get back to the SOL before looking back at Leo. We just found some serious information that will help us in the coming war. I need to get back to camp ASAP. You can tune the seats to your preference when we get there, okay? Okay, well I call shot dash. The hell you do, said Talia, walking up to them with a briefcase in hand. She tossed it at her blonde boyfriend. There's all the stuff we could find. Skeleton's orders are to kill you, then Percy, and then report back to Luke. That explains why they're dogging me, said Naruto, with his brows furrowed. He shoved the case into Leo's arms. Get in the back with Pipes, shrimp. Leo grumbled in Spanish while Piper glared at Naruto. Stop calling me that. Make me, said Naruto, sticking his tongue out at her. She stuck her tongue back out at him before climbing into the back of SOL, making Talia laugh while Naruto chuckled. The blonde climbed into his seat and Talia got into hers, both of them looking at Leo while he grumbled. Naruto beat Talia to the punch and asked, What's up, squirt? What kind of idiot leaves a big red button out in an easily pressed place? I mean, what did they watch MIB before installing it? Talk about overlooked design flaw, said Leo. I cannot wait to see the look on Beckendorf's face when you say that, said Talia, bursting into laughter. Naruto shook his head and buckled up, putting the car in gear before flooring it. He got back to his normal speed of 240 miles per hour, before putting his hand on the stick shift. His eyes met with Talia's before he looked forward. Pipes, squirt, better hold on to something. Do it, said Leo, excited while Piper swallowed spit in fearful anticipation. Let's burn some rubber, said Naruto, hitting the small red button. Once again, the group felt the G-forces pull at their bodies, turning into a stream of light as it shot through the streets. Naruto was ready this time, making small jerks of the wheel that kept buildings and cars from being wiped out by the force of their speed. They made it in record time, just as the moon made it to the peak of the sky, coming to a screeching, ground-tearing halt. The harpies sounded their alarms and campers were up at the ready. The older and more experienced campers were rushing out to Half-Blood Hill at arms. Leading the charge was none other than the trainer of heroes himself. Chiron came to a stop as the doors to the familiar and smoking Challenger popped open, Naruto and Talia spilling out with their arms around their stomachs. It was the two younger kids who followed them out of the car that surprised Chiron. Remind me to kick the guy who made the seatbelt's ass, said Leo with a groan. That was way too rough. Tell me about it, said Piper. They got to their feet, looking in awe at the large crowd. Leo took it upon himself to break the silence. What? Never seen a car before? Naruto, Talia, said Chiron, shaken from his silence at Leo's words. Welcome back, heroes. And to you newcomers, welcome to Camp Half-Blood. Naruto grabbed the briefcase from the car groaning as he walked over to the group, Talia nodding at Chiron. Naruto stopped and gave a two-fingered salute to Chiron. Good to be back, pony, Chiron groaned. Not you too. He's not going to bother you any longer, said Naruto sadly. He held out the briefcase. Important documents we liberated from some boneheads. Give them to Mr. D for me, will you? Out of the way, said a voice from the crowd. Breaking through the crowd of battle-ready demigods, Nico D'Angelo came to a stop next to Chiron, out of breath and a tad annoyed he couldn't shadow travel in camp because of some dumb agreement his father made with his uncles. Chiron, Bianca's, her, well you gotta come help us. Actually, Nico, I think you'll find better help from him, said Chiron, gesturing to the blonde, who became serious at the reminder of his charge's illness. Naruto dug around in his back pocket and after finding the serum made a clone to send with his young charge. Tell him everything you know, give this to Will, said Naruto, handing the vial to Nico. I gotta hang back for a second. Go now. Hi Oyabun, said the clone, knowing how serious this was, grabbing Nico's shoulder and using the Hiration to get them to cabin 13 faster. Naruto nodded curtly and turned to his group. Leo and Piper stood patiently behind Talia, who looked back at him. They nodded at each other before trudging through the boundary lines. The group of demigods split as they trudged through, Naruto's quest successfully completed. The second they passed the boundaries, two sources of light appeared above the new demigod's head while the new demigoddess started to shine a light pink. Leo looked up and saw a fiery light, which unknown to him was in the shape of a hammer, getting a small group of cheers from some slightly dirty and muscled kids. Piper's shine continued and she found herself in a sleeveless white dress adorned with all sorts of accessories, her hair straightened and makeup applied to her face, making a few really good-looking kids cheer alongside their crafting step-siblings. Damn, said Talia, seeing Piper's claiming. That dress was, well nice, just a bit much. Kind of glad I'm not Aphrodite's daughter. Why the heck am I in a dress? Apparently, Piper shared Talia's sentiment. Scratch that. Really glad I'm not Aphrodite's daughter. Talia said with a smirk to her boyfriend. Naruto laughed at his girlfriend's statement. Wait, who's my parent? Leo asked, a bit confused since all he could see was the ball of fire. Chiron stepped forward and knelt. All hail, heir. Naruto shook his head in amusement, stepping forward and kneeling before the new demigods. All hail Leo Valdez, son of Hephaestus. All hail Piper McLean, daughter of Aphrodite. Talia knelt beside him and swiftly the rest of the campers knelt in recognition of the married god and goddess claims. Okay, I can see why this is cool now, said Leo with a grin, looking over at his new stepsister. You know, you really pull that dress off. I will cut you, said Piper, grinding her teeth in annoyance as she held up her dagger at the boy. She was really glad she kept that in her hand the whole trip, who raised his hands in surrender. She tolerated them at best, but she was not a girl that liked to be forced into a dress and then paraded like some sort of award. She got enough of that from being her father's daughter, thank you very much. Before she could get another word in edgewise, her apparent sisters came in and swept her away to the cabin, a laughing Silena Beauregard quickly following them after thanking Naruto and Talia for taking care of her new sister. Charles Beckendorf then came up and clapped a hand onto Naruto's shoulder, his small group of siblings encircling Leo and talking to him while the others went back to bed at Chiron's urging. The smith smiled at the blonde. Thanks, Naruto. For bringing him here. Could always use another hand in the forge. Yeah, I'll bet, said Naruto, laughing a bit with Talia at what they knew would be coming. What does that mean? Beckendorf asked, his brows furrowed in confusion. Hey! You! Beck! Leo said, walking over to his taller brother and jabbing a finger in his chest. The hell kind of rookie are you, rookie? Beckendorf asked, confused even more. You're the one that put together the H-bomb engine, right? Leo asked. Getting a nod, the Latino continued. Why the hell would you make that thing the accelerator? What are you, new to this? I've been putting cars together longer than you, said Beckendorf, a bit upset at the criticism. AC accelerator. You hooked it up as the accelerator. Leo said. You didn't make it consistent speed, just a small burst. Well yeah, no one wants to get roasted while they drive. Alright, from now on, you don't touch my car. Excuse me? Naruto asked, arching a brow at Leo's claim. The smaller preteen waved him off. I put your engine together and I'm fine-tuning your ride tomorrow so that you don't set yourself on fire at full speed, said Leo, a pointed look at his annoyed brother. Plus, who else you gonna trust to make your car work, gringo? Beckendorf arched a brow at that while looking at the blonde and Naruto held his hands up in defense. Hey, whoa, I designated it to the cabin, not you specifically. My point exactly, said Leo. He turned to look at his siblings. And which one of you geniuses decided to pull a Men in Black tribute with the big red button? No one was willing to raise their hand and all of them looked a bit embarrassed at that, even Beckendorf. Yeah, none of you touches the gringo's car without my say-so. Geez, a Men in Black button, what will they think of next? How's about bed, Mr. Valdez? Chiron asked, walking over to the group. It is lights out. What, already? Leo asked. It's only what? 8? 9 time zones, Leo, time zones, said Naruto. He gave a two-finger salute to Chiron and then turned to Leo and Beckendorf while slipping an arm over Talia's shoulders. See you tomorrow, boys. They vanished in a flash of light and Leo's jaw dropped. Could he always do that? Yep, the hell does he need a car for? Naruto appeared in cabin 13 after giving Talia a final kiss goodnight, intent on checking on his charges. No sooner had he appeared did a certain giant cat pounce on him, giving his cheek rough licks of affection while giving off a rumbling purr. Ranger, good to see you, too, said the blonde with a smile, pushing the large saber tooth off of him with a bit of strain. You got bigger, buddy. Good boy. He petted Ranger just behind the ear on the neck. Glad to be home. He got up and walked into the D'Angelo's shared room. Will was using a needle to inject Bianca with the serum and the poor daughter of Hades was paler than usual, her upper and bottom lips stained black from that sludge she spewed up. The Black Death was an appropriate name to give to the disease, it seemed, even if that wasn't one of the common symptoms. Naruto nodded to his younger brother while Nico grinned at him, the boy's olive skin having a bit of dirt and grime clinging to it. How is she, Will? Naruto asked as he walked over to Nico's side, ruffling the boy's hair and arching a brow as some dust fell out of his raven locks. He'd have to talk to Nico about that later. Better, said Will, looking at his brother with a grin. You should know from your clone how bad it was. Naruto just nodded and put a reassuring hand on Nico's shoulder as he recalled the memory of his clone's brief life. Bianca was rolled on her side, more of the black sludge coming out of her mouth with every rough cough she gave. Though he did remember her looking at Will and the way he held her hand to help her through it, it seems Naruto missed quite a bit while he was on his quest. He could only wonder what Lord Hades would think of this development, a child of light and a child of shadow coming together. Aphrodite must be going gaga over it. Her vitals are stabilizing, said Will, holding the girl's wrist. He bowed his head and murmured a prayer, most likely to their father, before looking back up at his brother. Whatever you got is working. What was it? Get enough left over to have your mom break down the chemical formula and you'll know, said Naruto, swallowing dryly before patting Nico on the shoulder. You've done a lot and I'm grateful, Will. Get some sleep. You too, Nico. Lights out. You got it, Naruto, said Will as he carefully put Bianca's arm over her stomach. Okay, said Nico softly, getting up and going to his bed. Will walked out of the room, followed by Naruto. The younger blonde went to the next room over where he had a small bag rolled out. He said another night to his older brother, who nodded back as the adrenaline rush finished burning through his system. He crashed onto his bed, grunting as Ranger bounded up after him, collapsing next to him and purring contently. Naruto smiled at his sacred animal and ran his hand down the giant cat's back. Range, you wouldn't believe the shit I went through the last few days, said Naruto with a chuckle. Ranger yawned, making the blonde smirk. Good idea. I'll tell you in the morning, then. His eyes drifted shut, and Naruto Uzumaki felt the realm of Morpheus embrace him. Naruto was awake early the next morning, reveling in the first peaceful rest at camp in a long, long while. Ranger had moved in the night to the floor at the foot of Naruto's bed, apparently reassured that Naruto wouldn't leave again. The blonde rolled out of bed, content with the sleep he got. He greeted the equally early rising Ranger with an affectionate stroke of the head, getting a rumbling purr for his efforts. He checked on his blearily waking brother, Will, who like him as a son of Apollo woke with the sunrise, and then the two D'Angelos. Nico had the covers over his head, his arms sticking out at the side, and Bianca had a peaceful smile on her face, her olive skin tone returning to its proper shine. Go ahead and get some food, then come back and check up on your patient. If that's all she is to you, said Naruto, a smirk on his face as his brother's cheeks turned red. Shut up, Naruto, said Will, rushing out of the cabin while trying not to look like he was, making Naruto chuckle at his brother's retreat. Flustering the younger kids always made his day. Naruto waited for Will to get his fill, tagging out so to speak when the boy returned and giving his little brother a knowing grin that had Will growling at him. He left the cabin with Ranger close behind him, the large cat becoming his personal escort, who left his side upon laying his eyes on the daughter of Zeus at the dining pavilion. Ranger sprinted ahead and nearly tackled Talia to the ground with a deep meow of joy. The girl laughed at the big cat's antics, returning his affection with a smile and a fond pet of the happy Sabretooth. She looked up at her boyfriend as he approached with a smile of his own on his face. "The cure working?" she asked, a hand on Ranger's head and idly scratching it. "So far," said Naruto, smirking at the purring Sabretooth. "Ranger sure has gotten affectionate, hasn't he? Considering we hardly left the camp in the past year, he must have been beside himself with worry," said Talia, smiling at the cat. "Right?" Ranger said nothing and continued to purr under her scratching, content to be back with his two favorite demigods. Naruto shook his head in amusement at their actions and looked around the pavilion. The other campers were awake and settling into their tables. Leo looked like he was having a blast, joking and shoving around his larger siblings like he wasn't the black sheep of the group. Piper, however, was arguing with the hellion that was Drew Tanaka, until Silena stepped forward and forcibly separated the two half-sisters. Well, at least Piper got out of the dress. "Naruto!" The blonde turned at the call of his name and smiled at the rushing form of his adopted little sister. He caught Annabeth as she bowled into him, her arms wrapped around his sides in a tight hug. "Hey Annie," said Naruto. "You guys have any?" What he thought was laughter turned out to be crying, Annabeth's shoulders shaking as she burrowed her head into his chest. "Annie, Annie." "Tch, it's okay, Annie." "Tch." He shared a concerned look with Talia, who nodded back at him. They knew Annabeth would rather die than be seen so defeated in front of the rest of the camp. Talia put a hand on his shoulder before the three demigods and Sabretooth were teleported to the outside of Zeus' cabin. Talia quickly opened the door, where Ranger bounded in, sniffing around one of his favorite spots, and Naruto walked Annabeth in and out of sight. With the door shut behind him and rushing past the overbearing statue of the cabin's sire to Talia's room, Naruto pried Annabeth off of him as best he could to get a look at her face. "Annie, come on, you gotta tell me what's wrong or I can't help," said Naruto softly, stroking her hair soothingly. Wise puffy red and gray eyes opened to look at him and the blonde felt his heart break just a little. "I broke the rule," she said, sniffling as she tried to recompose herself. "I left my friend behind." More tears escaped her as she looked down. "I wanted to help him but he made us leave, and then the volcano erupted. I could have helped him, why wouldn't he let me help him?" "Annie, calm down," said Naruto softly as she started to fall apart again while Talia looked at her in concern. They moved to the couch where Naruto sat Annabeth down between himself and Talia, Naruto keeping an arm over his sister's shoulders while Talia stroked Annabeth's head. "Now, tell us what happened while we were gone." And so she did. Annabeth told them how she was chosen to lead a new quest to find Deadless, meeting a hundred-handed one and fighting camp, being assisted by Hera after meeting a strange god named Janus. Naruto bristled angrily at the mention of what was going on at the Triple G Ranch and whined jealously at Annabeth's infinite throwing knives, succeeding in making her crack a smile. Talia gave her a thumbs up for killing the Sphinx, and Naruto asked how Hephaestus was doing. "He was rather lonely," said Annabeth, unable to find the words. "That's Uncle Hef for you," said Naruto with a sigh. "Damned good mechanic, but really bad at interacting with others. Which is Hera's fault," said Annabeth with a frown. Talia smirked at that, agreeing while feeling sorry for her half-brother. "It's Hera's fault for his appearance, but all Olympus is to blame for his loneliness," said Naruto pointedly. "Athena is no exception to this, Annie. One time her spear just showed up while I was giving Uncle Hef a few ideas for a new sort of arrow. It was chipped on the edge, apparently from stabbing Uncle Ares in the thigh or the ass, hard to say. No note or anything, just expectant. I doubt my dad and Auntie Arte are innocent of this sort of thing. Heck, I'll bet the only two that aren't are Uncle Herm and Mr. D, and that's because they're both too busy." Annabeth conceded to that and continued with her story, telling them how Grover and Tyson, who Naruto admitted to be worried about since he was a good friend to Hephaestus more often than not isolated cabin members, split off from the group to find Pan. Talia and Naruto shared a look that Annabeth missed thanks to Ranger plopping his head on her lap before the two demigods returned their attention to the younger blonde. Then she came to the forge in empty St. Helens, describing the Telekines and their current project, before coming to the end of her tale, where Percy told her and Nico to leave while he held the monsters off. Talia was comforting Annabeth by the end, Naruto far too lost in his thoughts, leaning forward with his fingers steepled together in front of his mouth. "He's alive," said Naruto after a long while. He sat back and pet Annabeth's hair, making her look at her in confusion. "Jackson wouldn't be dead or Nico would have felt it and said something by now." "How do you know?" Annabeth asked, her eyes puffy from her crying. Naruto smiled at his little sister reassuringly and tapped her with 2 fingers on the forehead. Because, silly little sister, Nico is the son of Hades and has bonds with all of his friends. Hades, like his brothers, is emotional, even if he hides it well. He is fiercely protective of his close family, going as far as to hide his children in a time-manipulated casino. Imagine how Nico or even Bianca would feel if their cousin who they trained and grew with last winter just died without being informed, said Naruto as he dropped his hand. He looked up at the mural on the ceiling that resembled a thundering sky, just like in the first room. Bonds truly are the strongest force on this planet, Annabeth. It could make a mother gain 10 times her strength for the child she carried for 9 months, or a man become immune to pain for the rage he feels at the loss of a friend. I think you would know if Jackson died. What does your gut say? He's alive, said Annabeth quietly, but assured in her statement. Yeah, he is, said Naruto, ruffling her hair. That idiot is too stubborn to die. Sounds a lot like you, Whiskers, said Talia, making her boyfriend laugh. Yeah, and that's one of my better traits, said Naruto with a smirk. He looked back up at the moving mural. He'll be back soon. Well, he'd better be, at least. As the sun rose on an island not mapped or plotted anywhere save for Olympus, a raven-haired teen with green eyes gasped awake, coughing and groaning. A shadow cast over him and someone helped him sit up to drink some water. Rest, you need to rest, said a pleasant voice. Percy Jackson blearily tried to identify the owner of the voice, but he soon returned to the realm of Morpheus, dreaming of his friends and the second home he had at Camp Half-Blood. Chapter 23. Percy Jackson was not having a good month. First, before going out with Annabeth to see a new movie before going to camp, he gets attacked by cheerleaders turned monsters and then gets into a fight with Annabeth. Then, after his cousin's boyfriend gets some secret quest that's real hush-hush, the replacement makes a stupid game where he and Annabeth nearly got killed by giant scorpions, resulting in them finding an entrance to the labyrinth. The adventures through the labyrinth itself were worthy of being its own book. Facing off against Camp to save the hundred-handed one, being confused by Janus the two-headed god and Hera the queen of Olympus, meeting Geryon and seeing Apollo's red cattle, and Annabeth getting the killing strike on the Sphinx. He was impressed by Annabeth's skill with the knives she found at Triple G Ranch and Nico's use of shadow travel. Following that was meeting his cousin Hephaestus, a real strange encounter considering how the smith acted, stranger than when he met Hephaestus' wife. But then came a big, shocking and upsetting discovery. Annabeth had a crush on Naruto. Thinking about the blonde son of Apollo made Percy want to grit his teeth. Mr. Perfect, of all people. He was pretty much everything Percy was not: smart, cool, smooth, handsome, witty and strong. Hell, this was probably the guy Luke learned everything about being Mr. Cool from. Obviously, Percy hadn't heard any stories about Naruto's past in Konoha, where he would run around after a successful prank and proclaim proudly, "One day I'll be the Hokage, Dadabayo." Ah, blissful ignorance. Wake up, said the pleasant voice from before. Percy groaned as he was stirred from his dreams of fire, a laughing blonde and a smirking one and the dark mockery of his grandfather. The raven-haired boy blinked his eyes and rubbed his head as he sat up. How are you feeling? The voice asked, coming from behind him. Like I just got shot out of a volcano, said Percy with a grunt, his skin feeling tender and his muscles feeling like jelly. His throat was sore and his voice sounded like a toad's. He covered his face again, rubbing the tiredness out of his eyes. Where am I? My home. The voice said. Percy turned to ask dryly where he was specifically when the girl that stood before him struck him speechless. She was pretty, beautiful even. He might dare say she was more beautiful than Aphrodite because she wasn't trying to be, she just was. Her caramel hair was braided and fell over one shoulder, giving her a shy allure, and her dark almond-shaped eyes looked at him with genuine concern. Her skin was milky and timeless and her lips were pouty. There was also the faint smell of cinnamon in the air. Who are you? Percy asked after a silent beat. I am the queen of this island, she said, smiling just a bit bitterly. Calypso. Percy took a moment to nod slowly and look around at his surroundings. He was in a very well-refurbished cave. There was a fireplace built into the wall, a pot hanging over it that was giving off the smell of something delicious. Like beef stew. Just thinking about it made Percy's stomach growl. Percy looked past the white veil-like curtains acting as walls and over at the harp playing on its own to the side. Percy got off the cloud-like bed, nearly collapsing as he did. Calm yourself, brave one. Calypso said as she caught him. She helped him right himself and moved him to the table. Percy sat with a grunt, his body felt like it was still on fire. He really hoped that he did what Hephaestus asked. A bowl was set in front of him by nothing. Eat. Calypso said, sitting across from him. You must recover your strength. Thanks, said Percy gruffly, his throat sore. Hesitantly, he picked up the spoon and shakily brought it to his mouth. It was delicious. Almost like he was eating something familiar. Is this what I think it is? Ambrosia? Yes, mixed with a few herbs, it helps demigods recover quickly, said Calypso with a small smile directed at him. Percy shifted a bit at the look he got from the girl, his cheeks burning a bit at the intensity of her stare. Why are you looking at me like that? Percy asked. Calypso said, blinking a bit before flushing. Oh, no reason. Just making sure you enjoy your meal. It has enough ambrosia just to help you recover. I have to go. Before he could stop her, the teenage girl rose from her seat and hurried out of the room. Percy just blinked in confusion before looking down at the soup in front of him. With a small shrug, he got back to eating the meal that was arguably up there with his mom's blue cookies. He frowned when his thoughts drifted to Nico and Annabeth, wondering if they got out of the volcano before it erupted. I hope they got out okay. Percy said to himself softly. Someone's talking about you, Annie, said Naruto with a chuckle as the girl sneezed. They had just finished mapping out the labyrinth, which really didn't go that well, despite Annabeth's venture through it a week prior. They had the connection to Alcatraz, which reminded Naruto of the trip he had to make there, the opening to the Triple G Ranch, outside of Clarissa's house, the exit to Mount St. Helens and the entrance at Zeus Fist, or Raijiji's Deer Poop Rock, as Naruto so elegantly put it before Annabeth corrected him when the sky boomed. After that failed attempt at mapping it out, Naruto decided to cheer her up by taking her to the archery field and work on their throwing skills. I still don't believe that is a wives' tale, said Annabeth, frowning as she pulled out another throwing knife. She tossed it at the target where it hit just at the edge of the bull's eye. You never believe anything, Annie, said Naruto. He turned around and pulled a kunai out, looking at it as he held it by the tip before he threw it behind him. It hit dead center and he grinned. I'm so awesome. You're such a showboat, Naruto. It's easy to guess who your dad is. Annabeth said with a glare, pouting a bit at the shot she couldn't make. Yet, anyway, I'm not that bad, said Naruto. He glared back at her, both of them pulling out their respective knives before throwing them. They looked at the targets and Naruto smirked while Annabeth pouted as Naruto hit the center of his while she was a few centimeters off. The whiskered blonde crossed his arms. Well, I think we know who won this argument. Shut up, Naruto. Make me, Annie. I could tell Talia about the I am with Irene. I would literally do anything to keep that quiet, said Naruto. A few days ago, Talia volunteered to go with Piper on a jet back to California to visit Jason and check in with Piper's dad, since there were no phones at camp and her dad wasn't the most spiritual. While she was gone, Naruto received a call via Iris from Irene, the goddess of peace and most likely Ares' least favorite sister. She once more asked him to join her in peace that he rightfully deserved. Being who he was, he kindly declined. Unfortunately, Irene is persistent, and although apparently a pacifist, is not above playing dirty. Honestly, tempting him with assuring there would be peace in his homeland for all his life was pretty low, and actually very tempting. Seriously, Naruto was a bit upset with himself for actually thinking about it. He loved Talia and the camp way too much to seriously go through with it. Yeah, I thought so. Annabeth said with a smirk. She pulled another knife out as the one on the target returned to her pouch. She took aim and started to pull her arm back when Naruto stopped her. Shoulders back, throw to the side, release before completing the swing for max accuracy and speed. That goes against physics. Annabeth, look at me. Naruto said, making his sister look at his amused face. Think about what you just said and who you just said it to. Shut up. Annabeth said with a pout while he laughed. Huffing and doing as Naruto instructed, she was surprised when the kunai hit dead center. But, how? Grip, aim, release. 3 fundamentals of the art of ranged weaponry, said Naruto. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a marble. Nicked this off of my cousin Connor when his back was turned. He's not the only pickpocket in camp anymore. Naruto looked up. By the way, thanks for the unintentional help when I was younger, Uncle Herm. He looked back at a tree beyond the target. I'm going to bounce it off the branch, then use the broad side of Eclipse to bat it through the target. Watch. Naruto threw the marble and Annabeth followed it, though barely. She saw the branch shake from the impact and heard the sound of it thanks to her trained and ingrained battle senses. Naruto's coppice expanded out of its flashlight disguise, being twisted by its wielder to make more use of the flat side of the blade, batting the marble Naruto had tossed right into the butt of the kunai that was impaled in the center. The kunai shot through with the marble right behind it. Naruto grinned and flipped the hidden switch on the back of his blade, letting it disappear back into its concealed form. Show off. Annabeth said, pouting a bit. Oh, come on, you have to admit that was pretty cool. Naruto said with a frown. 6 out of 10. Annabeth said, giving him a smirk and an iffy gesture. What? That's at least an 8 easily. You only bounced the marble off of a branch. Yeah, but I hit it with the broad side of my sword. Anyone could do that if they're lucky enough. I bet Percy could do that, and he relies mostly on instinct. Touché. Naruto said, defeated. Percy was skilled enough to catch that, and just lucky enough to do it the same way Naruto did. Annabeth giggled at the face Naruto made when she brought up the wet-headed wonder, as Talia called Percy. When her giggles died down, she gained a small frown of worry, looking back at the target and wondering what happened to the boy she called, and it was an accurate name, not affectionate, no matter what the girls of Cabin 10 said, Seaweed Brain. If he melted in that eruption, Annabeth would never forgive herself. Naruto caught onto the apparent track his sister's mind was on from the way she bit her lip and quickly decided to change the subject. So Bianca's been asking when she could get some extra lessons in ancient Greek. Ha! Annabeth asked, being snapped from her train of thought. She is? How's her physical therapy going? According to Will, she's getting around much better and rebuilding her muscle faster. According to Nico, she needs a wheelchair, said Naruto with a snort. His youngest charge was none too pleased to have the son of Dr. Solace in his cabin still. Nico was a bit selfish when it came to his sister. The girls of Cabin 10 are starting to call them Bianca, said Annabeth. I was hoping for Bill. Naruto said with a frown. That would have been great material to use. You're a horrible brother. Annabeth said, her head shaking in exasperation. No, I'm a fantastic one. I pick on all of my siblings equally to show my love, said Naruto, smirking at his lil sis. Movement to his left caught his eye and his smirk turned into a grin. Ain't that right, Blackie? Seriously getting old, Naruto, said a boy that walked over to the range with Leo. This was the next in line for the role of Cabin 7 counselor, Michael Yu. He, unlike his brothers and sisters, was short and had dark hair that contrasted greatly with the cabin's usual mop of blonde. This made him the almost literal black sheep of the group. And Naruto never let him forget it, in a good way of course. The boy, however, had an attitude that more than made up for his lack of height. It faded a bit when Naruto would talk about being the shortest in his class all his life, but occasionally reared its ugly head when a member of Cabin 5 was around. Apparently, in his first year, Michael managed to get the upper hand in a fight against one of Ares' kids, resulting in a win, and Apollo was so proud he claimed Michael on the spot. Ah, come on, that's not too bad considering he calls me Squirt. Right, gringo? Leo asked as he dropped the bag next to him that revealed some safety equipment. In Michael's hand was a bow and over Leo's shoulder was a quiver that had Naruto's grin widening. Righto, Squirt. You two should not be allowed to associate with one another, said Annabeth with a groan. Naruto and Leo were a dangerous combination, the camp discovered this soon enough, but it was when Leo and Michael met that shit started to really hit the fan. Michael had ideas that had even Connor and Travis ducking in cover. Like the fart arrow, one of Michael's favorite new toys to use. He used at least 10 to get vengeance on Clarice for giving him a wedgie 2 years ago. Since then the two black sheep have been inseparable. Come on, Chica, you can't hate the players for having fun while they play. Leo said with a grin. She's just mad because we stunk up Cabin 6 by accident, said Michael. You deliberately shot that arrow at Malcolm. Annabeth said, glaring at the black-haired boy. Do you have proof of this alleged deliberate act? Michael asked, smirking in a manner not unlike Naruto's. Hit any members of my cabin again and there will be consequences, you. Whatever, Blondie, do not call me that. Hey, let's all be civil here. Naruto said, stepping in as Annabeth clenched her fist while Michael smirked at her. The whiskered blonde looked at the elfish son of Hephaestus. "So what did you bring this time?" "Some new arrows to try out," said Leo, grinning widely as he swung the quiver around and pulled one out like a caddy would a golf club. "This baby is the new and improved, Valdezu patented net arrow, based off the tightening nets of the Yautja from the Predator series," said Michael with a smirk as Naruto took the arrow and looked it over. It was pretty big for an arrowhead, but the seams along the shaft were near invisible. He found a familiar switch at the nock and pointed it out. "You get a 3-second period before it opens," said Leo. He grinned and pulled another out. "This is a regular net, so the timer is a bit longer. You can tell by the feel of the nock and the fletching which is which, but the arrowheads look the same." "Light too," said Annabeth as she weighed the arrow in her hands. "Bronze wiring, on the tightening net. That's for the monsters we'll have to face," said Michael with a frown. "Got some grade A steel wire for the other net, but I have to find a way to make it light enough," said Leo. He grinned at the frowning son of Apollo. "You here thinks it's impossible." "It's not impossible," Michael said, rolling his eyes. "I mean, theoretically it's possible. We just don't have the resources here to do it. We have the technology, Leo said, wagging his finger at the boy. "Don't doubt me." "Never said I did, Valdez." "Then take the shots, Blackie," Leo said, pointing at the targets. Michael made a face at his friend and took the arrow from Naruto while walking up to the line. He readied the arrow, pulled back on the bow and took the shot after flicking the nock. The arrow flew for 3 seconds when it split apart and released the net that spun open, taking the target to the trees and crushing it to splinters in mere seconds. "Overkill," Annabeth said, her head shaking in disbelief. Leo was a great smith and his creations were amazing, but in Talia's, rarely used, words, damn was that scary. It only got worse the longer he hung around Michael or Naruto or, gods forbid, both brothers at once. Annabeth could only imagine the hell the three would bring down upon the camp, or their enemies. "Too slow to open," said Yu with a shake of his head. "I'm telling you, 1 second would be enough." "You kidding me? Someone on our side could get in the way," Leo said with a frown. "Ladies, stop fighting, you're both pretty," Naruto said, cutting Michael off before he could retort. The whiskered blonde nodded his head at the quiver. "What else you got?" "Oh, right. Well this," Leo said, pulling a thicker arrow out that had 2 prongs with small tips that looked like they were barbed. "Is the Valdezu pronged arrow. You guys need to work on names," Naruto said with a smirk. "I told you that was a stupid name." "Shut up, Blackie," Leo said to the raven-haired son of Apollo. He glared at the older blonde and tossed the arrow to him. "Here, try this on for size." Naruto caught the arrow with ease and looked it over. The fletching was black, much like the arrow, and it didn't look very aerodynamic. Humming curiously, Naruto reached behind him and unfolded his bow. "That doesn't disguise itself?" Leo asked, arching a brow. "How the hell do you get away with carrying it, gringo?" "The mist favors me, Leo," Naruto said with a grin as he knocked the arrow on his bowstring. He took aim much like his brother did, quickly, and released the arrow after flicking the switch on the nock. It flew like a normal arrow and then split in 2 right down the middle so that there were now 2 prongs. They impaled either side of the target, making Naruto's eyes widen at the accuracy of the hit. "I would have thought for sure they'd veer off," said Annabeth, voicing Naruto's very concern. "That's the extra weight in the arrow," Michael said. "A pair of magnets that keep them aligned with each other and slow down the separation, but not too much that it will kill somebody. And if you don't flip the switch, you can still catch someone's wrist," Leo said with a grin. "Handy," said Naruto, making the 2 boys snicker while Annabeth rolled her eyes. Leo reached down to grab another arrow when he noticed the vanilla file folder at Annabeth's feet. "What's this?" he asked, snatching it before Annabeth could stop him. He flipped through it with an arched brow. "The labyrinth? Let me see," Michael said, rushing over to look through it with his friend. "Whoa, Alcatraz is being used again. That's like from The Rock, only, I dunno, less Nicolas Cage-y. And less explosive nerve gas," said Leo, making his friend nod. "That would literally be unfair to the demigods." They groaned when Annabeth snatched it back, glaring at them for taking her information without permission. "Ah, come on, it was just getting good." Ask next time and maybe you can look through it. Annabeth said with a scowl. Actually, maybe it's a good thing Leo found it, said Naruto, humming in thought as he folded his bow up and put it away. Talia-chan's away with Piper to tell Piper's dad that she wants to stay at camp for the summer so she can't stop me from leaving and I need to deal with something that could be very problematic if left alone. Why did Talia take Piper to California, anyway? Annabeth asked curiously, her brows furrowing in thought. Naruto grinned and tapped her on the nose. Secret, he said before she batted away his hand. Oh come on, you can't keep that a secret, too. Annabeth said with a bit of a whine. She had gotten him to give her the same explanation he gave Percy, Grover, Talia and the hunters last winter, but still that raised more questions than answers. Like, how was there a hidden world in the Antarctic when Apollo only flew the sun east to west? Or, what made chakra so accessible to the people of Naruto's home but not to today's demigods? She deserved to know. Or at least her mother's influence demanded her to find out. Watch me, said Naruto with a grin. While Annabeth pouted, Naruto turned to Leo and Michael. Okay, here's the lowdown. Michael, you know I'm not from around here. Duh. Michael said, rolling his eyes. Anyone with 2 brain cells could tell you that, Whiskers McGee. Ha! Nice one. Leo said with a laugh and a high five to his friend. He then looked to the scowling blonde questionably. What do you mean, not from around here? Are you legit Japanese? Euroasian, actually. Naruto said with a grin. That's besides the point though. I come from a civilization hidden from the modern world. We don't have cell phones or computers, or even basic cable. You poor, savage bastard. Leo yelped when Naruto bonked him on the head. Shut up. We do have, however, the ability to do incredible things like multiply and control the elements that the gods normally have sole control over. However, our lands were left alone by the gods due to sacred boundary laws created by other deities that have since passed on. Since then, we have learned to use our life force to do incredible feats, like so. Naruto turned and walked from the group to a tree, walking straight up it and walking along a branch, making Leo gape. The blonde then dropped from the branch and walked back like it was nothing. Pointing over his shoulder, Naruto continued where he left off. I learned to do that when I was 12. And I learned to change my appearance when I was 6. Watch. Naruto snapped his fingers and his body was engulfed in smoke. When the smoke cleared, it revealed an exact replica of Leo Valdez, smirking back at the original. He spoke in Leo's voice, further shocking the elfish smith. This is called the transformation technique in English, something all children in my homeland learn when they're young. Still doesn't beat holograms, bet you can't do that. Leo said with a smirk. Actually, Naruto could, but he has too much chakra, said Annabeth, entering her lecturing pose. There's a technique that he could use, the predecessor of his favorite technique. It's called the clone technique, and shinobi use it to create holographic duplicates of themselves. Naruto doesn't have enough control for that and most likely never will, since it's one of the first techniques used by students, which I still have an issue with. Let it be, Annabeth. Naruto said, his eyes rolling at her disapproval of child soldiers. He and his mother got enough of that from Lady Persephone, who disapproved of it as well, having known how precious and short childhood was. All I got from that was that Naruto has a large chakra, said Michael, smirking at Annabeth as her face turned red at the innuendo. Leo laughed while Naruto groaned, palming himself in the face at the lame joke. It would have been funny if that innuendo hadn't been the same joke Jiraiya loved to use. Seriously, the perverted sage used it at least 300 times in a week. A week. It was memories like that that would remind Naruto to ask his father how he, as Minato Namikaze, stayed so pure as a shinobi like his mother said he was. Anyway. Naruto said, making the 2 smirking black sheep and the flushed daughter of Athena look at him. Somewhere in Alcatraz there's a seal that would allow the people from my home to journey here with ease, which is a big no-no. Can't have too much awesome running around after all. Then I'd look mediocre, and we can't let that happen. Annabeth said with a smirk, making Naruto nod in agreement. Exactly. He said. They could also be recruited to work for the crooked asshole. The what? Leo asked. The father of the big 3, said Michael with a smirk. He's the only one Naruto calls that. Nicknames galore, huh? Leo asked with a chuckle. Alright, so what do we do? Well, I have a car and a license. Naruto said, making Leo's eyes twinkle. We're taking Seoul? Leo asked. Naruto nodded and Leo whooped. I thought it was called SOL. Annabeth asked. Naruto renamed it, said Michael with a smirk. Like the music genre. Really? Annabeth asked flatly. Naruto sheepishly scratched the back of his head. What? It's a good name. Homonyms and everything. It's word play. He said in his own defense. Annabeth continued to give her brother a look until he shifted the focus off his car's name. So, do you want to help or not? Do you really have to ask? Annabeth said, smirking at him. I call shotgun. Leo said. Annabeth's smirk fell into a pout and Naruto chuckled, turning to look at Michael, who smirked. You need all the awesome you can get. Michael said. He and Leo shared a grin before slapping hands, pulling their arms back and giving each other fist bumps. Naruto arched a brow in amusement at their handshake. Isn't that sweet? The two black sheep are blood brothers. Alright, then to cabin 9. Naruto said with a grin. They got the car out of the cabin easily enough, but somehow Chiron caught wind of their plans. Naruto had to pull the centaur aside to explain that the Roman camp and the underworld itself was at risk if the connection to the hidden lands was left alone in Alcatraz. Chiron agreed with that, admittedly begrudgingly. Even if he was more attuned to Greek legends, he knew that the Roman children had to be defended. He was still a deity of protection. That all said and done, they piled into the car and Naruto complimented Leo on the cozier seats. Naruto turned on the soul and peeled out of the camp once again, leaving behind confused campers and bemused members of Cabin 9. They made it to the road and Naruto waited until they got on the turnpike before looking at the button on the dash labeled, H-Burst. It was the replacement for the Men in Black tribute button. Why did you call it that? Naruto asked Leo. Because your engine is a glorified H-bomb. We either go shooting off to the west or we die horribly and take thousands with us. Leo said. No pressure. Michael said, pulling out his camp beads and praying to Apollo in Greek. Annabeth began to rub her father's ring on her own necklace. Oh come on, it can't be that bad. Naruto said, pressing the H-burst button. The windshield tint darkened to near pitch black and a screen flickered on in front of Naruto. The seatbelts changed, becoming padded and a bit more firm. The G-force hit them for a second before their ears popped and Leo laughed. Ha! I told Beck it would work. He said. Wow, this is impressive, Leo. Annabeth said, looking at Naruto's heads-up display and balking at the speed being the infinity symbol. How long will this take? About 5 more minutes. Naruto said, carefully navigating them through traffic. Handles smoother, and we're not on fire yet. A good bonus. Michael said with a sigh of relief. Thank Apollo. Don't thank him yet, Blackie. Naruto said to his brother, getting a glower. He clicked the radio on and got a jazz tune. Ooh, I haven't heard this since I was in Georgia, looking for a missing ring of Lord Hades, met a real cool cat down there at a museum. Said he was there for the Egyptian exhibit. Really? Annabeth asked. She loved Egyptian lore almost as much as she did Greek, since both cultures grew so closely and yet hadn't shared the same mythos. Yeah, what was his name? Arnold? Angus, Amos. That was it. Good ol' Amos. Really knew his jazz. Naruto said with a grin. How do you go from Arnold to, never mind, I don't want to know. Michael said. His brother's mind was a place he tried to stay away from. Seriously, Naruto thought up some strange shit when he was left alone for too long. The only jazz I like was killed off by Michael Bay. Leo said with a frown. Worst. Transformers. Ever. What are you kidding me? Naruto asked. Bumblebee pissed on a guy. The hip-hop, jive speaker died in the movie. Leo said with a glare. Jazz made the movie, and like a racist, Bay killed him. Thus, worst Transformers ever. Alright, I'll give you that. But I'll bet that the sequel will be better. Naruto said with a smirk. Maybe they'll have Marky Mark in it or something. Wahlberg? Doubt it. Michael said with a snort. They'll be lucky if Fox does the second movie. Megan Fox, now that's a babe. Leo said with a dreamy grin. Michael dropped his scowl and joined him. She's just a face. And a daughter of Aphrodite, but that's aside from the point. Annabeth said, her eyes rolling. Megan used to go to camp and then left, her career picking up keeping her away. She was one of the lucky few that could have a normal life. And they destroyed the Hoover Dam. Not cool. To be fair, that was Megatron. Naruto said to his sister. And it wasn't really destroyed. A few chunks out here and there, but it's still held together. Still though. Annabeth said, her lips pursing together as she pouted. That's sacrilegious to Cabin 6, yes, I know. Naruto said with his eyes rolling as he changed the station. Ah, now here we go. Some nice easy listening. Metallica is easy listening? Michael asked in disbelief. Yes. Naruto agreed, glaring at his brother in the rearview mirror and daring him to defy the truth of his words. So, Alcatraz? How are we getting in? Michael asked, shifting in his seat. He was a bit unnerved by the look Naruto gave him. What is it with you guys and overcomplicating things? Annabeth asked. Naruto gave a quick sidelong glance to her while Michael blinked in confusion. Naruto, Talia told me about that quest on Valentine's Day. And Michael, like you've never rambled about some song for hours on end? Shut up, my mind goes places. Michael said, frowning at Leo for snickering at him. He crossed his arms with a huff. Like you're one to talk, Chase. I think of every scenario, sure I overlooked some, but I've thought of them already. Annabeth said, turning around to glare at the boy. That had no hubris in it at all. Leo said, smirking. Shut up, Leo. Alright. Annie, you've already made a plan. So what do we do? Naruto asked as they passed through Texas. I thought it'd be obvious. Annabeth said, getting odd looks. I will never live this down. Naruto said as he shuffled around on the ferry to Alcatraz. A tour group. Why didn't I think of that? Because you were thinking along the lines of an awesome badass. Awesome badasses don't do obvious. Leo said, getting a fist bump from Michael for the accuracy of his statement. Would you both quiet down? Now when we get back to the prison, Naruto will cover us with his clones and their disguise technique. Annabeth said, confident in her plan. Henj no jutsu. Naruto said helpfully. Then we split up and searched the prison. There shouldn't be any monsters, but we can't be too sure. Annabeth said. After we deal with the seal. If it's paper, let me know. If it's just on the stone, break it. Naruto said, getting a nod from the others at his warning about paper seals and booby traps that are near undetectable. Right. After we do that, regroup and Naruto will take us back to the car. Annabeth said, which I'll drive because apparently, the teleporting is wiping Mr. Perfect over there out. It'll be easier than converting my toaster to a radio. Leo snapped his fingers and engulfed his thumb in fire. I'm ready whenever you guys are. Same here. Michael said, patting the quiver hidden in his backpack. Just try not to be jealous. He and Leo shared a high five while Annabeth shook her head and Naruto laughed quietly at their antics. Their adrenaline was at full mark when the ferry docked and Naruto swiftly summoned a few clones to replace them in the group. They split up, Naruto and Michael going up while Annabeth and Leo went down into the depths of the prison. Naruto easily ran to the top of Alcatraz ruins and made several clones to search the premises, leaving Michael to use the Valdezyu-crafted climbing arrow, based off of one made by Hephaestus for Naruto's personal use. He pulled his collapsible bow out of his pack. Why Apollo's kids never thought of asking for these before Naruto's arrival always came to the front of his mind, and prepared the arrow. Aim, flick and pray that the wall doesn't crumble. Michael said to himself quietly, shooting the arrow up to the sketchy-looking wall. It embedded itself in the rock and Michael grabbed the rope, experimentally tugging it and sighing when the wall stayed intact. Thank Olympus. Now, just like the rock wall at camp, only no lava. Michael climbed up the wall slowly, slipping once and looking back down over the cliff. Poseidon's ocean crashed against the island wall, roaring in its own way as it did and scaring Michael more than any monster possibly could have. He was not a swimmer and did not enjoy the sight before him. Swallowing, Michael steeled himself and resumed his climb. Meanwhile, in the lowest parts of the prison, Leo ducked around a corner, pressing himself against the wall and holding his hand in the shape of a gun, the tip of his finger on fire. Da-na-na. Leo said, peering around the wall, using his handgun to check his surroundings. Da-na-na. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Leo dropped his hand with a sigh. This is boring. Man, I hope Annabeth is having more fun than I am. A few floors below him, Annabeth was in awe of the architecture of the original structure being reused. It was much like the labyrinth, only less mystical. She could understand why it opened out here now, though. She shook her head, trying to get back on track. Why does this place have to be so fascinating? Annabeth asked with a groan. Why couldn't the ninjas have chosen a burger joint or something? The blonde daughter of Athena just hoped the others were having better luck. Nothing in the East Quadrant either. Naruto said, frowning. He looked to the west at the sound of a raven cawing. He made 2 clones. Find Annie and Leo and then get back to me. You got it. The clones said, nodding before vanishing in swirls of leaves, using the slower, but chakra-saving Shunshin instead of the Hiraition. Naruto ran to the source of the call, joining up with Michael swiftly. Fast response. Michael said, blinking in confusion when a clone appeared and then dispelled. What was that? Clones retain information other clones get. Naruto said with a grin. Dude, Cabin 6 must hate you. I know, right? Michael led Naruto to the seal, letting the blonde crouch down and examine the relatively large tarp of paper pinned to the wall. There was one glaring part of the seal that had Naruto's eyebrows furrowed together in thought. It was a spiral, much like the one on his stomach, a staple of the Uzumaki clan's seal makers. He didn't know anyone alive in the Konohan forces that was able to make this, but the ones who he did know were dead. Oh, I don't feel so good. Leo said, groaning as he and Annabeth appeared in a flash of yellow light. Annabeth looked a little green herself. Michael took it upon himself to help the two out while Naruto continued to examine the seal. Once she saw what he was doing, Annabeth joined him. Very impressive. It's a vacuum seal layered atop a homing matrix, allowing the users to teleport to and from point A, most likely Konoha, to point B, here. Annabeth said. Then there's this protection seal, probably to keep the shinobi intact during transmission. Very astute, but it's an attraction seal, not a vacuum. Naruto said. He then pointed to the seal Annabeth spoke of seconds ago. And this isn't a protection seal, but a memory seal. This one is designed to recognize the mass of specific atoms within a single person's body. That's not possible, is it? Annabeth asked, her eyes wide. For the logical, no. For an Uzumaki or an Uzumaki's apprentice? Child's play. Naruto said. He pat Annabeth on the head and ripped the middle of the tarp. B-. B-. That's not fair. Annabeth said with a whine. 2 seals wrongly described and overlooking Uzumaki handiwork. Naruto said with a smile. I think it's fair enough. Grade grubber. Michael said under his breath, Leo snickering. She is a bit of a teacher's pet. He said in agreement. The 2 black sheep ignored the glare Annabeth sent their way. Shut up, Valdez. Make me, chase. Naruto ignored their squabbling as he folded the now ruined tarp up. He had more questions than answers with this discovery and would have to talk with his mother about it sooner or later. There were 2 possible explanations for the seal's strange design. Either it was a formula Konoha dug up from the history books or someone, an old Uzumaki apprentice or something, was using his clan's mark without his say-so. If that were the case, then if Madara, or worse Kronos, recruited them, the camps wouldn't have to worry about the labyrinth. Alright, we've got what we came for. Let's get back before Chiron has a heart attack or something. Naruto said, standing up and turning Michael around to shove the folded seal in his backpack. Why am I carrying it? Michael asked. Because I said so, now everyone hold hands. Naruto said, smirking as Leo and Annabeth shared a small glare before begrudgingly holding hands. They vanished in a flash of yellow, leaving behind not a trace of themselves while the mist encircled the tour group they traveled with to Alcatraz, erasing all memories of the 4 and allowing the clones to dispel. Little did the 4 demigods know that one more person had used the seal prior to their arrival. Kakashi Hatake was a member of ANBU, and his skills weren't as rusty as he made them appear. The one-eyed Jonin shook his head in amusement. He was so glad he scooped this mission up before a more determined Chunin could take a grab for it. Reaching into his pouch, Kakashi pulled out his small guide to the United States and settled down on his perch atop Alcatraz guard tower. I think I'm going to be here for a while. he said, flipping the book open to where he left off. New York City, the Big Apple. Interesting. That's it for part 14. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.